movie. Yeah, I'm starting it a couple of minutes early, y'all. Let's see if it's going to let me share.
What went wrong?
I'm trying to see if it'll let me. Oh, there it is. All right, cool. So you guys get a good picture of what we're sharing today, or as I like to say, clearing my throat. Hello, my lovable misfits. How y'all doing today? I am live with Mitch, and we're discussing a topic that shouldn't be controversial, but has become controversial over the recent years, and that is the inherent problems in writing. And what we mean about that is not only scripts, but in books, adaptations, and so on and so forth. And over here, you see my sticky note because these are basically the bullet points we're going to be covering for the stream. And yes, we will be shilling and shouting out some indie creators as we go throughout the stream. So now that we have that going and we have a Batman in the chat, we have an Arthur Nix. Hey Art, how you doing, Arthur? I did send a link to the hubby, so he should be popping in sooner or later when he can.
People have to stop calling him Art. He's not Art. He's Arthur.
Arthur.
It's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, some girls are not a Jen, they're a Jennifer.
Yep.
It's just how it works.
Yep. So the first one, the first little plot hole, or the first little thing we're going to discuss is inherent and glaring plot holes. And what we mean by plot holes is when an author or a script writer starts writing a script with side plots, and all of a sudden some of the side plots decide not to be elaborated upon. They're forgotten or thrown over an abyss, or maybe succumb to a memory hole that the writer overlooked until people started reading his stuff or watching his shows or movies and went, hey, wait, what happened to this person over here?
Well, at least when it comes to it, like a novelization or a piece of fiction that's in the book format, at least in that case, it's not obvious that they were just throwing things in to see if they could fill time. Because, hey, we've got this huge budget on this movie. We've got to fill it with a bunch of stuff because with this kind of budget, it has to be at least 2.5 hours long, or for example.
Yeah.
So we need to fill like 3 more minutes in this movie. What can we throw in there?
Right. We'll get that the adaptations. But yeah, or as Batman said, resolve too quickly, easily, and conveniently. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of guilty of that right now with this piece I'm working on with my vampire story, because the intro of the new main character, because I've switched who the main character is, now features okay, look, I'm writing from the first person. And this,
which isn't easy to do.
I think it's easier because now I don't have to keep track of a timeline and all that stuff. It could just be, hey, here's what this guy's dealing with. But anyhow, as the story opens, he's engaged in an activity that's going to help to lay some of the groundwork for who he is as a character. But even he recognizes that in the telling of his story, because, and I say it that way, not because I honestly think someone else is in my head telling the story.
Yeah.
It's because a different character has a different voice from another character. Even in a book, there are different voices that you have to employ to differentiate the characters. And as a writer, you have to speak in those different voices. But I'm doing some of what Batman's talking about there, because in somewhere less than a chapter, this character's intro bit is resolved pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But it's also just an intro bit. It's that intro part of the story where you learn a couple of things about the character and the world that your character inhabits.
Yeah, kind of like what I did with when I finally coalesced how my Morgan story was going to start. And mine was a little bit more snarky. And in my thing, I am used to writing in an omnipresent state. That way I can keep up with different characters in the book. So when I started writing Morgan, and I came to the realization that it was going to be a first person. My problem now is maintaining that first person voice and having to remind myself constantly, if she isn't in that scene, she doesn't know that's happening, so I can't put that in the book.
See, I think that's harder to do than what I'm doing.
Yeah, first person. If I generally when I write, it's in first person. But I don't know about you, Mitch. But whenever I do write like that, the only point of view you're ever going to get is the character whose point of view I'm writing from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I've
don't
got it.
switch to different characters.
Right. That's what I'm doing. Except I'm using a contrivance to bring in another character's point of view.
Yeah.
I find with that, you write in a lot of ways it is easier to write, but I find I have to also make notes about what the other characters are doing that the readers won't be aware of until whatever they're doing comes to fruition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, in the first person, the audience learns things as the character does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, your first person character is the audience's window into the world you're writing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur's right. First person future perfect tense. I don't know what that means.
Well, mine is Morgan is more like a first person told in a flashback kind of way, because she's older now, recounting what happened to her when she was younger. Now, I would say out of all the projects that I've got started, the most ambitious one is the book that's Cowboy Out of Time, which gives you a good idea of how my actual Hanover House series is going to work, because this guy who's a bounty hunter, due to some wild magic, literally got sucked into the D&D dimension, and he's got a cyber leg. So he's got to deal with all that while his friends back in his world are trying to figure out A, what happened, B, how are they going to get him back, and all that stuff's going on. So it's flipping in between both worlds.
That can get a bit iffy, especially if you go from like a cyberpunk, like science-based world into a fantasy-based world. I mean, will advanced technology work in that world? Will magic work in the other world?
It's not. Well, in my world of the Hanover House, magic is just awakening. It's coming to the fore, which allowed the gate from the other world to actually appear in this girl's property. So magic is young in our world, and it mixes with technology because of the cyberpunk aspect, and the fantasy races are actually popping back up through either dormant genes that are awakening and causing people to morph, or people that are giving birth to like orcs and trolls and elves and things of that nature.
Sounds like
so our world is reawakening into a magic world with technology, and then you've got the D&D world that is amalgamating with that.
Sounds like you're pouring a lot from the Shadowrun.
Yeah, I am.
I have to address what Arthur wrote. He writes, future perfect tense is saying something like, when he arrives, he will have had a long journey. When I fall asleep, I will have had a tiring day. Try writing a whole novel like that. Arthur?
Nope, that would drive me nuts.
If I find myself writing like that, I will have had enough of myself.
Yeah.
If I find myself writing like that, I'm going to save up. I'm going to buy a plane ticket. I'm going to find where Arthur lives, and I'm going to beat the tar out of him.
Also, my thing, another plot hole is when you're writing, and everybody's rough drafts is called a rough draft for a reason. You're writing because the words are in your head and you're writing them down. And when you go back to read them, you realize that some things aren't following a coherent timeline, which also creates a plot hole.
Right.
So, you have that problem inherent as well.
One of the stories I was written, I haven't even finished it yet. That's one of the things with me. I never seem to be able to finish them. But I was writing a story. It was set in Los Angeles in the late 60s. So one of the things I did is I went around old bookstores, and I found a traveler's guide to California, circa 1966, I believe it was, and that became my my writer's bible for that story.
Yeah.
Also did a bit of research on like terms and how people live and react in the United States as well, especially around that time. Because even if you're going to write a story set around your own doors, if you know what I mean,
Yeah.
you've still got a lot of research to do.
Oh God, yes. I mean, the story I'm writing takes place very much in the middle of the United States.
Yep.
And I lucked out and found some great locales that are close to each other that have names that lend themselves to the type of story I'm writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I lucked out there.
Yeah, mine is, and it's since I'm creating, I'm kind of pulling a Tolkien. I'm writing my own world, my own universe. I'm making my own maps and stuff. And there were some things when I started the map making process that I hadn't considered, and I will admit that now, that Batman brought up and reminded me of, like how the different weather patterns mesh with, the different regions and things of that nature. And those are challenges that I like to get my brain going, because if I'm going to make a map of this world that nobody has ever seen, I would like it to be as accurate as possible.
Yeah.
So those questions are actually helpful, and I love those kind of questions.
Like one of the things, got this from world building in D&D. If you've got a largest continent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's like an island continent, the interior is almost certainly going to be arid and dry.
Yep. Worked for Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Worked for the United States as well when you look at it.
Yeah.
And if there's mountains in between the sea and any portion of the interior, it's going to be even drier.
Yep.
Yes.
And we are going, and on that note, we're going to move into.
Something my English teacher told me, a bit of advice.
Mm-hmm.
If you write a story, if you find something difficult or even impossible to believe in a story that you're trying to write, don't force it, because if you don't believe it, the people who are reading it aren't going to believe it.
Yeah, true. Now, in our next bullet point, which is it could have been better, Mr. Black earlier today basically tweeted, "Define wasted potential," to which I quote tweeted and put one of the more contemporary examples of wasted material, which is Poe Finn from the sequel trilogies.
No, Poe and Finn are two different characters.
Okay, this is Poe, right?
No, this is Finn.
This is Finn.
That's Finn.
See, this is very poignant, Maddie. Just with that whole conflaption over the name,
yeah,
it's indicative of the disservice they've done this character.
Yeah, it is because it's I watched 2 out of the 3 because I couldn't make it to the 3rd. I will admit that, but it became inherent that this was wasted potential. This could have been the better part of the trilogies that would have raked in the money, because it is not quite a villain to Jedi tale. It was more of a soldier's transition from fighting from the Empire to possibly becoming a Jedi and being the hero of the story, which would have been a better arc than the one they gave it.
Yeah. I found Finn a very hard character to believe in, because he basically being raised as a baby to be a stormtrooper and indoctrinated heavily every step of the way. And from what I've read, when the stormtroopers are coming back from missions, their indoctrination is reinforced. There is absolutely no way he would have rebelled.
Which created a plot.
Well, no, you never know, because if he was born with a latent ability in the Force, which they never explored, that latent ability may have given him an edge.
Well, if that's the case, then there should be no Sith.
I don't know about that.
Hold on, I know what you mean. But yeah, not necessarily, because they would have. That might have just made him an officer in the Imperial Army.
It may have. In fact, it may have created in him what they call the nega psychic in some of the older role-playing games. That was a person who had psychic ability, but so vehemently did not believe in psychic powers that their own inherent psychic power could negate psychic powers,
Yeah,
which
I
is
know
an
what you mean.
interesting concept. And even that would have been a better concept to follow with Finn. But they just never took him anywhere.
No,
This is why I don't like J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams has a particular skill when it comes to narrative endeavors.
Characters?
What's that?
Disposable characters?
No, not really. That's not where I was going. J.J. Abrams is great at the starting line. But everywhere from the middle to the end of the race, he is absolute garbage at what he does.
Well, the whole thing with me in this particular trilogy is by the time they gave it to J.J. Abrams, it was already a piece of shit that you couldn't polish into anything better. So they basically put this shit on his lap and said, "Can you fix it?" And he couldn't fix it. Now, I'm not a fan of J.J. Abrams because, to me, once the whole new Star Wars, whatever that we're going to do in the reboots and remakes came out, and he literally admitted that he's never seen or read any of the source material, I knew it was going to be a contrivance.
Well, yeah.
Doesn't Abrams
Same thing with Star Trek.
ever make films about stuff that's already being made?
Yeah.
He doesn't make any original stuff, does he?
I mean, look, if you watch Cloverfield, I think it's Cloverfield. One of the problems in that movie is that the movie itself breaks your immersion as an audience member. Then the way it does it is part of the story is there's a I believe it was like a wedding or bachelor party or bachelorette party combined or something to that effect. Maybe it was just the wedding reception party or the rehearsal dinner, whatever. They were all involved. One guy had a video camera, and while all the things were happening around them, this guy with a video camera was basically documenting because why not? He's got a camera. So what happens is because it's because that's how the movie is shot, that's the kind of cinematography employed. Every time one character says to the guy with the camera, "Did you see that?" And they do this a lot. Yeah. The guy with the camera who is looking in the direction of the thing that should have been seen turns to look at the guy who said, "Did you see that?"
Yeah.
Each and every time. So it's cumulative. I could see it happening one time, but you're the guy with the camera. You're so dead set on filming the thing that's happening, then keep your camera on the thing that's happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
To break the conversation for a minute, because the picture that's been shown, that would so work.
It would, but I mean, it
wouldn't.
Now, the way I'm going to introduce this is why didn't they go with him for Indy 5? Now, first of all, I've got a couple of things to say. Number one, if he wouldn't have gone off the deep end mentally, they were already setting it up for Shia LaBeouf in the fourth movie to take up the mantle and become the new quote-unquote Indiana Jones per se, which would have worked, in my opinion, if Shia LaBeouf hadn't lost all of his fucking marbles.
Right, now I need new spectacles because I thought that was Chris Pratt.
That is Chris Pratt.
I'm getting to that. Okay. Now this is a new suggestion. Chris Pratt taking on the mantle. However, it wasn't set up to do so, and they're trying to put a female in his place in order to continue the franchise. First of all, in my opinion, the franchise should have ended with The Last Crusade.
Yep.
Yeah. They're not just trying to.
Okay, that was the culmination. That was the final, not nail in the coffin, but that was for lack of a better term.
Yeah, that was Indiana Jones, the final chapter.
Wrapped up the trilogy. Yeah. Right, that was the final chapter.
From what I've heard,
the Crystal Skull stuff with the aliens was like way over the fucking edge.
From what I've heard, they're trying to this style of Destiny. They basically erasing Indiana Jones from history and replacing him with the female character, who apparently nobody likes.
Yeah, Indiana.
From what I've seen, nobody likes him. But I mean, it's like I said, going to a younger actor would have been the better way. And if Shia LaBeouf wouldn't have lost all his marbles, we would have had a continuation of the franchise. Just let him, under the Indiana title, carry on with his own name, because we already know the origin story of the name Indiana, and we know that's not Indiana's real name.
Do you know there's something they could have done, especially with modern technology, and it would have worked. You start off Chris Pratt, right?
Yeah.
Only you deep fake young Harrison Ford onto him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as the movie progresses, you slowly, incrementally removing the deep fake until, let's say, a bit more than halfway through, you're just left with Chris Pratt. I mean, it's done at such a gradual stage, the audience wouldn't realise consciously, and they'd just get used to Chris Pratt being there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Mitch and I touched on this in the server, so he has his reasons as to why Chris Pratt wouldn't necessarily work. Would you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Oh, absolutely. Chris Pratt right now is too big. He's too big because it would no longer be an Indiana Jones movie. It would be a Chris Pratt as Indiana Jones movie. And that's...
I get what you mean, yeah.
Just same thing. Just like when they hired George Clooney to be Batman. It wasn't a Batman movie. It was George Clooney as Batman, the movie.
Just like when they hired Christopher Reeve to play Superman. Therefore, it wasn't a Christopher Reeve movie. It was a Superman movie.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It just happened that they hired and cast the right guy to do the part.
Now, somebody had put this under the wasted potential category, and I'm flipping to this for a different reason, which is why I have it under this bullet point. Now, there are some parts where a superhero costume actually works in the movie, and taking away elements from that superhero costume takes away from the character. And then there are instances like this where that would be absolutely ridiculous on the big screen in live action. The Hawkeye on the left.
Yeah, it's too silly.
Yeah.
There's one way of potential which goes the other way. The Green Goblin, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Sam Raimi says Norman Osborn is this genius scientist. Only a madman would wear a costume. He was a madman!
He really was.
Yeah.
And I mean,
he really was.
For the Goblin mask, all they need to do is fit Willem Dafoe with some prosthetics for the chin and the nose. And just think of how much more life Willem Dafoe could have breathed into that character.
Oh my God, it would have been awesome. I mean, they didn't have to do a whole prosthetic head.
Terrifying.
Yeah. And it's like, as I said in the server, the only movie that I remember watching with vivid detail and absolutely loving it because it worked. The aesthetic worked. The comic to live screen, big screen transition worked absolutely perfectly. That was with the Dick Tracy movie.
Yes.
I hated that movie. I'm sorry.
So did I, but the visual style of it worked.
Yeah. The visual style of it worked very well.
Do you know what actually made me hate the Dick Tracy movie? I'll give you a clue. She only wears knickers to keep her ankles warm.
Oh, Madonna.
Yeah.
Madonna. Yeah.
That's another story.
I can see that. Yep. That is definitely another story. Let's put these bullet points back up here. So now we have done with this. Do you guys have any more suggestions for how anything could have been better?
Yeah. Don't do the stunt casting thing. And I want to be this applies not just to movies, stunt casting. Yes, I'll explain. Because this applies to video games too. Don't hire the big name actor for your video game voiceover stuff. Because that's money that should be spent on game development. And I'm talking specifically about MMOs.
Yeah.
But the same thing applies in Hollywood. We shouldn't have had. Well, we should have had a different director if we're going to have Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're just gonna have Kevin Costner playing Jonathan Kent. It's not going to be Jonathan Kent in the heads of the audience. No. Because Kevin Costner is too big. He's too known a quantity. It would be like having Arnold Schwarzenegger
Actually,
as Mr. Freeze.
It's not just
Yeah.
that, because I mean, Glenn Ford, right?
Yeah.
He was as big as Kevin Costner, right?
Yes.
But when you saw him in Superman, he was Jonathan Kent.
Right.
Yep.
Because
Well,
Glenn, I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying Kevin Costner can't act, because he can. I've seen it. Watch the movie Silverado. The man's acting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that sometime after Silverado, he seemed to have gotten comfortable in a particular portrayal.
You mean being a personality rather than an actor?
Kind of, yes. At least on screen.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm not an actor. I don't study acting or any of that. But I just noticed that, like with Harrison Ford, at a certain point, Harrison Ford and come in the movies. That's all you're getting out of him.
It's the difference between an actor being an actor, playing a part, and an actor being the part.
Yeah.
Right. Bruce
Because
Willis is another good example.
Yeah, Bruce Willis is another good example. One prime example of an actor ceasing to be the actor and stepping fully into the part is Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yep. Christopher
Because
Reeves.
nobody can imagine him as anyone else, and Christopher Reeve will always be the OG Clark Kent Superman because he did both aspects to that character spot on.
Right.
Yep.
Same thing with Kevin Conroy and Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And also for the live action one, Michael Keaton.
No.
No.
I'm sorry. Kevin Conroy's Batman and Bruce Wayne may have been animated, but no other Batman on film on screen can hold a candle to him.
I would say Keaton's Batman and Bruce Wayne. He got it right. He stepped into the role.
Yes,
he became the character.
Yes,
more so than Christian Bale did, I think.
Yeah, that Christian Bale is a completely different feel.
Let's face it, Christian Bale was hampered by the director.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's another thing where it could have been better that I have to bring up. Someone's got to tell Hollywood to stop hiring auteur directors to lead and be the main brain trust behind an entire franchise.
Yeah. I mean,
that's not their skill set.
Well, I was going to say with stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
What I was going to say with stuff like that is you've got to stop these directors and writers as well, and to a lesser point for actors, from trying to put their own mark on something like that.
No, when you have a Superman movie, it's incredibly important to hire a nobody to play Superman.
Yeah.
And a film crew that is a good, solid, working film crew. Same thing with the actors. I'm including actors and film crew.
Like it says, they shouldn't put
directors.
They shouldn't try and put their own mark on it. Is what I'm saying.
It's because Superman is such a well-known character.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. Same thing with Spider-Man, Batman. Yep. At this point, Luke Skywalker, even.
Yeah.
You can't. How do I say this?
You can't fundamentally change the core of the character by putting your own way, by putting what you think the character should be in it.
Well, I'm going to say it this way. You need a cast and crew that's kind of mercenary in their approach to the work.
Yeah.
They're there to do a job. They're not there to give their take on Superman. They're there to make a Superman movie.
You need more Henry Cavills and less people. Yeah.
Yes, because Henry Cavill, as big as he is now, he was fair. He was like in that middle ground between known and unknown, I think.
Yeah.
When he got the role of Superman.
For what I've seen in modern films, especially with its well-known character they're doing, they seem to try and do a lot of self-inserts, writers and directors especially.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's
self-inserts are bad.
And we're going to get to that in the next bullet.
We really are, aren't we?
We really are.
That's my thing.
I will contend with this. It could have been better, and the problem is when you start talking, I think I'm interrupting you, so I shut up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
So
No, go on.
the one
Get
thing
it
I
out.
will add to this, it could have been better, is this is a hill I will probably breathe my last breath on, with the exception of Christopher Reeve as Superman, okay, and possibly the first live action Wonder Woman. DC needs to stay in the animated movie realm because that's where they excel.
No, not the first live action Wonder Woman, because that was around the same time as the Batman TV series. And
no, I'm talking about the movie, like, you know, with Penny, what's her butt is.
I was going to say the first good live action Wonder Woman to me was Linda Carter. I will die on that hill.
She's in that exception, but I'm talking about big movies right now with the Penny what's its director lady and the actress who played the Wonder Woman, whose name I can't remember right now because thank you. But yeah, the original TV series that I grew up with watching, yes, she did a very good portrayal of both Wonder Woman and Diana Prince. I'm not taking the spotlight away from her at all in any way, shape, form, or fashion. She was absolutely perfect for the role. Like Kevin Conroy was the perfect voice actor for any kind of Batman animated movie. He fucking nailed it. Because to me, to make a good voice actor of a superhero that has two aspects, that has their secret identity and their hero identity, if you don't nail both of them, you haven't nailed the character in all of its aspects.
The funny thing with Kevin Conroy, when he was doing his Batman voices, he hardly changed the voice for Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't much of a changed voice. It was more of a changed
attitude.
I was going to say personality too, because Batman and Bruce Wayne really are different personalities.
Yeah, and both of them are masks.
Yes.
Yep.
Because all these people keep saying, "Oh, Bruce Wayne's the mask and Batman's the real person." No.
Nope. I would argue
that includes Kevin
to this
Conroy
day
as well.
I would argue to this day that no one really knows Bruce Wayne. Maybe Alfred.
Alfred would, because Alfred raised him.
Yeah,
I disagree with that, Arthur. I don't. Self-inserts. A writer inserts himself into a story, even if it's an original story. The character they're using as a self-insert, they can't help it. It's part of human ego. It becomes
the work
better than the main character half the time.
You, as the writer, you and the work cannot be separated.
Well, the one time I think it actually, and I'll admit I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen enough of the movie to say that it worked to a degree, and that was Disney Pixar's Turning Red, where she was explaining how it was like to grow up in Canada with a Chinese family and how she struggled to, come into her own and be her own personality. That, in fact, it was kind of autobiographical, but it kind of worked.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff works.
I think Arthur's right about it's okay when it's an original property, and absolutely right when you don't do it when adapting something that already exists.
Yeah.
I mean, when you adapt back to it could have been better real quick. This is another mistake they keep making with the superhero films.
Yeah.
They keep being desperate to include that one big graphic novel story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whichever one, doesn't matter which one it is. We got to have that scene from that. No, you don't. You have to ignore that big graphic novel story. You got to ignore that big crossover event.
Yeah.
You have to figure out what story you're telling.
Yeah.
And tell that story.
If you'll
crossing
excuse
timeline
me,
problems.
I've got to go and feed the furry scrounger.
Okay.
Right on.
It's they look at this thing and they're like, we need to put, and I'm referring specifically to Batman versus Superman, or Superman versus Batman, or however that went.
Batman v Justice or whatever.
Right? It's like, you have one timeline. Let's stick to that timeline. Let's tell that timeline in the movie. And the other one that could have been better was the first Suicide Squad, because this is another hill I will die on. If they would have done a live action of Assault on Arkham, they would have made money hand over fist.
Oh, yes.
But they didn't. They went with the whole magical bull crap at the end of the thing, and we have to fight the magic stuff and the doohickey and the witch that went bad and yada yada. And I'm like, why? You have a perfect storyline in Assault on Arkham, and you didn't even give that the time of day.
Did that movie ruin Cara Delevingne's, whatever her name is? Did it ruin her career as an actress?
I haven't seen her in anything else.
See, I swear to God, watching her body movement in that movie, it looked like someone was telling her to dry hump everything around her.
Yeah.
She kept on like undulating.
Yeah.
When she was the witch lady. Now, I don't know if that's bad acting or bad directing. I don't know what the story is behind it, but it looked dumb.
Directing. Yeah, that might have been bad directing. And yes, Velma could have been done a whole hell of a lot better, except Mindy likes being Mindy, playing other parts and tearing everything down. That's Mindy's problem.
Yes, that's ego run berserk.
Yeah, because Velma was fine the way she was. And the way they were trying to contrive the original Scooby-Doo gang was absolutely misrepresented. Everybody had their part. Everybody was important in their own way in the original Scooby gang. And to sit there and tear everybody down, not to mention the fact that they made Norville black and gave him dreads. What the hell is with giving black kids dreads when you're trying to race swap something?
Oh,
not all black people wear fucking dreads.
No, but that's what's hip. That's what. Yeah. That's what these executives think. They think this, you got to do the hip thing. Well, what they don't understand, I can't remember what movie this was, but Peter Sellers was in it. He played a villain. But he played a kid's a guy dating a kid's Firstborn. The movie was Firstborn. I can't remember the kid who was in it. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. The people who are making these decisions to put the dreads on the black characters all the time and whatever else they're doing, they're trying to be hip, but what they don't understand is that hip isn't hip anymore.
Yep.
They're making their characters caricatures instead of living, breathing personalities.
Yep. And thank you for the 10 people that are watching the stream. If you are a lurker, we love our lurkers here. We know you're probably at work, or you're probably listening to us while you're doing those dreaded house chores and other adult things that nobody likes to do. But we appreciate you being here. Don't forget to like the stream and share it out, if you so please, so I can grow my channel, because apparently YouTube is lowering some sort of their little threshold.
Boom.
And if I can get to 500 subscribers and some odd fucking watch hours, I can actually try and do the partner program to where you guys can actually, tip me that way and other good crap. But up until then, there's a pinned comment, and that pinned comment is my GoFundMe. And the GoFundMe includes all the, there goes the brain, the deductibles that the
I just saw it go out the door.
Cover. Right? There it went. So if you can't contribute because you have your own financial problems, just at least please share out the GoFundMe and hope it will find somebody that can actually contribute. Because the faster we get these bills out of the way, the more we can concentrate on our next goal, which is to get the hell out of my mom's house.
Are you sure that was your brain?
Yeah,
so we really are still on. It could have been better.
It was wearing a sombrero, and it went arriba, 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 aha, ha, ha, epa, epa, epa.
Yeah, pretty much. It pulled a Speedy Gonzalez and got the fuck out of Dodge. I'm hearing in the wind that it's going down to 500 subscribers and still 4,000K watch hours in order for you to be able to apply for the partner program, in order for you to get the stream, the tips for the stream and the super chats and all that stuff when you go live. It's not a full partnership. It's like a lower tier partnership. But if I can get that, that would be great.
I'm thinking of starting a new month about it's all for like homosexuals and LGBTQ people who don't like to talk about sex. Yeah, it's called Prude Month.
Yeah, I still need the watch time too, Arthur. I still need. So we get to ideology and writing. And
one of my favorites.
I'm going to preface this with, and I quote, when we mean ideology in writing, we do not mean the ideology that is already set in the established lore of the movies, screenwriting, novels, and comic books that have already been established from their inception. We're talking about the current ideology being inserted where it doesn't belong.
Well, even the current ideology, you can insert it correctly. You just put it there. You don't put it there and take a direct stance and not show the other opposing side.
I'm talking about
this
bludgeoning
recently.
it in there as opposed to, working it, because they've taken out the bludgeons and they're basically trying to pound us over the head with it.
I'm going to see if I can find what I wrote, because I addressed this on a forum somewhere where they were talking about how new Star Trek is woke was the topic of discussion. And, there's the people like me who say, yes, it's woke. And there's the other crowd that says Star Trek's always been political. And let me find, okay, I'm getting close.
Yeah, I was going to use Star Trek, actually, because...
here's my take on it.
Wait, the original series... Hold on. The original series. Yes, it was political. Just about every show back then was political, and even up until now has been political. But back then, they presented both sides of the argument. They didn't push you to one side or the other. They let the audience make their minds up.
Okay, here it is. I'll just read what I wrote because it's a general response to the thread. And like I said, the thread is about Star Trek has always been woke and progressive and all that stuff. Political. It's been my observation that Star Trek has always been topical, not woke or progressive. The difference is that the former gives you something to think about, while the latter two insist that you take their side. Not only that, but the latter two also come packaged with their own versions of Bible thumping, witch hunts, selective history, and burnings at the stake. Indeed, the latter two, to paraphrase, I can't say the word.
Paraphrase.
Thank you. To paraphrase Peter Griffin, insist upon themselves.
I've got a good example for you. I was saying before you start the stream up there, in Strange New Worlds, I was trying to think of a sarcastic name for it, but I couldn't. The bridge crew are always back chatting Pike, right?
Yes.
You got the original series. I'm going to take Uhura as an example. She had a disagreement with the captain. She wouldn't back chat him, but he knew that she disagreed with him.
Right.
Well, it's like the STD. All right. In no congruous Star Trek universe would a mutiny would have been handled the way it was. She would have been put in a stockade. That would have been the end of the fucking series.
Yeah. And even if she wasn't, she would never have...
That shit wasn't tolerated.
Even if she wasn't, for some strange, obscure reason, even if she did something to redeem herself, her crime would still stand. She would never have gotten a commission again.
Nope.
Nobody, partially because nobody would have trusted her ever again. Tom Paris.
No,
I mean, you remember what happened to Tom Paris in the opening episode of Voyager?
Yep.
And most of the way through the first season, he wasn't really trusted, was he?
Nope.
No, he had to earn it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
and he wasn't even a mutineer.
Nope.
He kind of was, because he joined the Maquis.
Well, but he joined the Maquis after they cashiered him out of the service.
Yeah, he was a traitor, not a mutineer.
Yeah, you could say it that way. That would be more accurate.
There's one show that crosses over they did it better and the ideology in writing, and that was the one everybody gravitated to when STD came out, which was the Orville. The Orville handed a lot of quote unquote woke topics with a lot of tact, with good writing and with good acting.
Well, like I said, the Orville was topical,
The Orville
not
was Star Trek.
political and not woke and not progressive.
You remember that one where they found that Earth world that was just like Earth in the 21st century?
Yes,
Only basically it was
with the upvote and downvote badges,
it was
Yeah.
basically
social credit system.
Yeah.
Thank you. They handled that brilliantly.
They did.
They not only handled that one brilliantly, they handled the whole the alien world where they never had girls. The whole transgender
Mocklins.
issue. Yeah. The Mocklins. They handled that absolutely brilliantly as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
They did it the right way because they presented the topic
Yeah.
They also
and not the
handled
politics that insist
Yeah.
upon themselves.
They also
Yeah.
handled it perfectly within the lore of the show,
Yeah.
which is
Right.
what Strange New Worlds, Picard, and SCD don't do.
No.
No, they're incapable. There's a quality in writing that comes with lived experience, and a lot of the people I think in Hollywood who are writing now don't have that real behind the counter kind of lived experience.
It's not just that.
No.
One thing I take away from shows like SDD is the people who are writing it don't like the source material they're writing. They don't like writing, and they don't like the people who are watching.
Yeah.
It
No,
seems
that's
that
evident
way,
in a lot
but
of the new
it's
stuff.
it's more like what happens when you take writers from a teen drama series, say a 90210 or a Dawson's Creek.
Even those were even 90210.
No, even those were written better, I know, but those
Yeah.
are older examples, is all I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you don't hire a plumber to lay the foundation for your new house.
Yeah.
Hey, Ghost Dog.
Hey, Ghost Dog.
Hey, Ghost Dog.
Like, it's the also the ideology is the more we consume stuff, the more we start to see it, and we have to be careful not to constantly wear those glasses, because if you look for something specifically, you're going to find it.
Yes, you are. But
Regardless of whether it's in there or not, regardless of whether it's been put in there deliberately or not. Let me
And
put it
unfortunately, it gets harder and harder not to be wearing those glasses.
Well, it does, because the stuff is kind of shoveled in our faces daily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's one of the fun ways I like to address it is I like to take the point that the ideologues are trying, and I don't care which side they're on, but I do like to take the ideas that the ideologues are insisting upon and coming up with a story that makes it topical instead of political.
Yeah.
Because I honestly think that one of the best ways to beat the ideologue is to be better than they are at the job that they do. In this case, writing for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
So, I forget who I was talking with about it, but that whole did a whole concept of a Supergirl movie where transgender stuff is addressed in a way that is that's subtle for one thing, but really kind of poignant and the ultimate outcome of being an acceptance.
Yeah.
It honestly, I was so happy with the way that myself and whoever I was talking to came up with that idea. I want to say it was Mr. Bludya.
Probably was, because it certainly wasn't me.
But I just love the way it turned out, because look, some of the things that a lot of the I don't know how else to say it, but woke ideologues are trying to say are not necessarily bad things. The problem is mostly in the approach, and if I can say what they want to say with an approach that I think works better, then I'm going to do it. I mean, for no other reason than just for the challenge.
Well, I mean, it's what I mean by bludgeoning is that is what's basically dooming the comic book industry right now. That's what's dooming a lot of TV series when they just get started. And as well as movies. Is the fact that the ideology is being bludgeoned everywhere, because it's like, in order to do this diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're pushing out the majority, which is the people that are, not in the LGBT crowd. Let's face it.
Even the LGBT crowd are getting pushed out.
Well, the LGB, because so far the LGB don't want nothing to do with the rest of the alphabet mafia. They've got their own thing going.
Neither do the T.
Well, I mean the real T's, not the activist T's. When I mean the T's, I mean the activists.
Well, yeah. I've been on this kick for a long time now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring it up every time I can, because I think it's going to do a lot of people a lot of good to understand it. There is a major difference between the activist and the people they're using as a shield to justify their bad behavior.
Yes.
Those you can tell who those people are, because they're the people that the activist pretends to represent.
Yeah.
And
they're the ones who go out in public as cartoonish versions of the people they say they represent.
Yes.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's the way things are turning out. It seems like they're more interested in creating more rifts between people in this country.
I think they are.
Yeah.
So do I. I honestly, I'm getting closer and closer to thinking it's a psyop. But I don't like the idea of the psyop, because it sounds. I mean, it sounds like nutty brain work, right? Like conspiracy
the
level
tinfoil
stuff.
hat stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you look at what the conspiracy nuts have been saying for the last 20 years, their record's pretty fucking solid.
Yeah.
There's no denying that. Yeah. But I've always said too, watch the conspiracy nuts, because they're going to see it coming before any of us do.
Right. Okay, now we're going to move on to writing aged heroes, or what I call the Luke Skywalker syndrome.
That's
what I mean by that for the people that
aged heroes.
Go ahead.
I can give you a good example of a good aged hero.
Okay, Obi-Wan Kenobi. In a second. Let me go. Yeah, hold on. What I mean, for those of you that aren't familiar with my terminologies that are listening to the live stream, what I call the Luke Skywalker syndrome is taking a beloved hero that we all know and love, aging them and turning them into a bitter, jaded shadow of their former selves, which is what they did to Luke Skywalker in the sequel trilogies.
Yeah, they make them bad to make the new hero look even better.
Yeah,
that's a part of it, but there's another angle, and I think it's an angle that a lot of people in the entertainment industry don't necessarily pay attention to. I know that some do, though. I've spoken with some who do. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing with the number one, you don't need to reintroduce the thing that's already super famous.
No.
Let's run with Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. Here's my observation. And this is, mind you, I'm not even raising kids. Yeah. But I've seen it. I've seen this happen. People my age who grew up with Star Wars and Star Trek and all of those older franchises.
Yeah.
Are showing those movies to our kids.
Yep.
So there's no need. Yep. There's no need to introduce Star Wars to a new audience, because the new audience has been created by the old audience. Yep. Or I should say by the existing audience. Yep. So there's already a legacy audience that's transitioning into a new legacy audience. No one needs to do that. We don't need to reintroduce Star Wars. Everyone already knows.
I think one of the reasons why they do this, for like Luke Skywalker, for an example, is it's part of the agenda pushing. They're destroying the old heroes.
This is nothing more than tearing down an old statue.
So they're trying to make you hate the old heroes.
In a way, yes. But here's the other thing. When it comes to a character like Luke Skywalker, as Maddie indicated and specified, a character we grew up with.
Yeah.
Well, when you bring him back 20, 10, 15, 30 years later, I know I did that out of numerical order. Be glad I didn't throw letters in there and turn it into algebra. But when you bring it back decades later, the character has to have grown up along with its prior audience. That it's a Willow, good example. Willow should have grown up as much as we did.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
he did in a way, but the way they wrote him, it was like Willow would have never admitted that he was not a wizard or a shit wizard, which is basically what they were presenting him as a series when he finally admitted, I'm not this great wizard that I am supposed to be. Because he was always, as he was learning, that was his goal, to become, the next wizard so he could train Allura. And he was confident in what he was doing and the journey that he was taking. To now put him in the series, age him, and have him admit that he's a shit wizard was like, what? You have got to be kidding me at this point.
It's another hero that's been destroyed.
Yeah.
Because these old heroes, they represent everything that the new agenda hates.
Yeah.
It's true.
I mean,
the
only thing that I agreed with in the series is the fact that he was telling Allura that she was supposed to be, the person to lead the armies because he was the one that found her in the movies. He recognized her for who she was. And he believed that she needed to be trained in her magic at an early age, which for some reason, Sorsha took the completely different extreme view in the series and said, no, she needs to be sheltered. She needs to be kept from that. She doesn't need to be the person of destiny that she's destined to be. So I'm going to lock her up under this dome and in this city, and she's not going to be allowed out, which was completely contrary to her character by the end of the movie. And it was like, that was another hero in the movie that they tore down. Right. She became the villain, basically, because she didn't want Allura to go anywhere. And I'm like, okay, I get the fact that, they established in the movie that your bloodline was of the evil witch that wanted to kill Allura, but you don't have to follow in those footsteps. You don't have to do that. You weren't that way by the end of the original movie, and they just completely rewrote her character to the point where her and Willow butted heads, and she literally told him that you are not a wizard. There's no way you could train her. You're never going to be good enough to do that, and he got pissed off and left, which is completely justifiable as a reaction. This is a friend of yours telling you that you're a piece of shit.
Now, look, I like this. These are some of the reasons. All the stuff we've been talking about are some of the reasons that I'm going in for these fan films and indie projects that I like so much, and that I push so often because they've done a lot of the things. They've grown up with their audience. Mm-hmm. That's part of it. But the people making them, Womp Stomp Films, Dave McRae, Cecil Laird, Braden Timmons, these people know what the fans want because they're fans themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films worked.
Yeah.
Well, they worked, but they didn't work for me, not entirely.
Well, not entirely.
I liked the first two. The third one was...
Oh, the third one was that classic case of studio interference. We got to have Venom. We got to have a black gooey guy in a costume.
Now,
we got to have a black Spider-Man, that whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was also in the comic books, but they didn't really, give it.
But they didn't do the comic books. That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Venom has a rather detailed history in the comics.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they ignored the biggest parts of it.
Wait, to do Venom properly, you've got to do the Secret Wars.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they went ahead and they made that Venom movie. 2 of them.
But what these fan films do, they understand the fans, so they know what the fans want, but they also respect the fans because it's the fans that are that are donating the money to get these things made.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, they're appreciating the feedback.
Yes.
That's why I
And
like
it's, and honestly, I'll give you an example of growing up with the audience. In Womp Films, Never Hike Alone, the first one, because they're in production on the second one now. In that first Never Hike Alone movie, the hiker, see, this is where I've got too many names in my head now. Kyle.
Okay.
The hiker's name is Kyle. He's an adventure hiker YouTuber type. But anyway, the slasher genre. Okay, Never Hike Alone is a Friday the 13th fan film, and the slasher genre is notorious for the booby shot.
Yeah.
Because back in the 80s, we got to get boobies in these pictures. That's their whole thing. They wanted to see the boobies, or at least the one guy in the studio who's handing out the notes wanted to.
Yeah.
But anyway, someone wanted to see boobies, so you always had a topless gal in the movies. And what Womp Films did, they grew up. The filmmakers grew up.
Yeah.
So when they told their story, the world in which their story exists grew up too, along with the rest of the fans. So what they did was they had a Playboy magazine from, I think, 1981 or 1980. And that was one of the artifacts, if you will, found by the hiker at Camp Crystal Lake when he found Camp Crystal Lake. That's one of the things he found there was this old Playboy magazine. And what they did was they did the boobies without doing the boobies, because you really don't see much of what's in the magazine, but you see enough to get the hint of what's there. And that is good filmmaking. That is growing up with your audience. And that is a brilliant method of communicating to your audience what's happening without showing what's happening.
I mean, in the case of writing this particular aged character that is on the screen right now, we get the fact that he's basically a boomer.
A what?
World War II, a boomer, or the silent generation. Okay?
Silent generation.
Indiana
In fact, he was before the silent generation.
I think he was, yeah.
So it stands to reason that now that technology is being more prevalent in his world, he's not really going to be adjusting well to it. I get that point. Showing the fact that he's not adjusting to the current technology, that's one thing. Okay? Because not everybody is technologically minded. And let's face it, we've never seen him. I'm not done. We've never seen him use anything really highly technical. He's gone on his wit. He's gone on his intelligence, his knowledge of archaeology. He's got his whip. He's got his gun. He's got his personality. And as the times changed, and he's tried to change with it, it's kind of gotten ahead of him. And I can understand that aspect of his character. But making him completely jaded, pissed off, and disgruntled is just no.
Yeah, they've thrown Indiana Jones away, and they've gotten Luke Skywalker from The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
But
it would have been better.
Hold on a minute.
What?
I'm sorry. Go on.
Let Batman finish.
You're on about keeping up with the technology. The film's set in it's the early to mid '60s, isn't it?
Yeah.
The technology then wasn't very much different. Wasn't very much more advanced than what he was used to dealing with when he was in his prime. So he wouldn't have any problems with that.
No.
True.
No.
Okay, I stand corrected.
I was going to say, if to put that in the film, that's bollocks.
Yeah. Yeah, now that you put
you kids and your TV remote controls.
Yeah. Yeah, now that thank you for the correction, because I didn't exactly understand, how far they had done the timeline, because I didn't look too much into it. So thank you for that. Yeah, you're right. That would have been total bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, if it was set in the modern age, he'd be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, look. We knew with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull that Indiana Jones was dead.
Yeah, he was already aging himself out.
Look, there was that part where I think as Mutt says to him, "I thought you were an archaeology professor," and there were multiple takes of the Harrison Ford response to that as Indiana Jones. Like, I thought you were an archaeologist. The one they went with was part-time, was the way he delivered it. But there's another take that is so much better and so much more Indiana Jones, where Mutt says to him, I thought you were an archaeologist. Part-time. Because it was just coming off an action scene.
Right.
Where Indy would be pumped up a bit and probably a little short-tempered because he had to deal with some shit. Part-time would make more sense. Part-time sounds like he gave up.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things that I heard about the new one, Phoebe Waller-Gates, is it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, he's delivering
Bridge
this
or whatever.
lecture or something, and she's one of the students in his class, and she knows more than him. If I was to say that in cinema, I'd sit there and think, if she knows more than the archaeology professor, what the hell is she doing as a student?
Yeah.
Correct him.
Completely
But here's
agreed.
the thing. Here's the thing. Getting back to growing up with your audience.
Yeah.
What would have been great for one of these, get rid of the crystal skull, get rid of the dial tone of destiny, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah.
Get rid of that nonsense and have an Indiana Jones adventure, but this time he's playing the Henry Jones Sr. kind of a role.
Oh, get out my head, Mitch.
Which segues into the sequels, because go ahead.
What I was going to say is you could still have an Indiana Jones film with Harrison Ford playing Indiana Jones, only since he's older, it's more like a mystery film than an action film. It'd still be an adventure film, because, like you said, Mitch, he's got a young protege there. He's doing all the brain work. The young protege is getting shot and getting beaten up and shit. Yeah. You could have a scene where the guy, his protege, is getting beaten up by a bad guy, and Indiana's standing there goes, no, you're fake with your left and hit with your right.
Well, stuff like that, yeah. But it'd also be funny to have that moment where Indiana Jones is like, oh, God, I'm turning into my father.
Yeah.
Because he would kind of resent that a little bit. I don't see how Crystal Skull was in line with the rest of the franchise.
Well, you're talking to a guy who likes that movie Looper here.
Whatever. Temple of Doom was awesome, by the way.
Yep. It was.
I like Temple of Doom. It was a worthy success. The first film.
Temple of Doom was pretty dark.
Yes. It was.
I mean, just it touched on a lot of dark subject matter.
It did.
Whatever happened to Harpy in that? Billy, Bobby, what the hell was her? Oh, God, what was her name? She married Spielberg after that movie.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about.
Kate Capshaw.
Yeah.
I can't remember her character's name. Bobby or Billy or something like that.
Blondie.
Yeah.
No, that was in the 70s.
Film, but the other three have weird super. Well, it's okay. It was established with Raiders of the Lost Ark that a lot of these were going to have a supernatural story to them in his search for the artifacts. So that's why the Temple of Doom kind of gets bleed over, because you've got him coming over here. It's in the same time period. I can see kind of where you're coming from with in line with the rest of the franchise, because they went back to the World War II and the Nazis and, all that other stuff. But my whole thing about introducing like alien crystal skulls with warping reality and blah, 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 that was over the top for me.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to actually have any continuity to it, then each of the movies should have been him trying to beat the Nazis to a particular religious artifact that Hitler wanted to covet.
Well, the second movie was a prequel.
Yeah.
Temple of Doom took place chronologically before Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I did not know that, actually.
Yeah, I think Raiders of the Lost Ark was 1938, and I think Temple of Doom was 1936.
Do you know Raiders of the Lost Ark? Do you know what my favorite scene in it is? And I think it's a brilliant written scene.
Huh.
It's
that?
where the bad guy German's got Indiana's girlfriend in his tent, and then the little fat guy comes in,
Sala?
and he pulls this contraption. It's all
Oh, not Sala. You're talking about the coat hanger.
yeah. That wait, thanks. Just destroy what I'm describing.
Oh yeah, you say that like no one's seen the movie. Come on.
I know, but it's the way it's the description is everything, and there are people out there.
No, I call him
There are possibly people watching this who haven't seen it, but it's a contraption. It's all rods and chains, and she's terrified. She thinks it's torture, but it was brilliantly written.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. It was a beautiful sight gag.
Because the first time you see it, you think it's an implemented torture as well.
Yeah. Well, and it's because that's why I call that guy coat hanger. For one, I don't remember his name, but he was a creepy looking bastard.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was awesome to see him to see them work with that element of his appearance and the coat hanger thing. God, it's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like that also Raiders of the Lost Ark also gave us what I consider the most brilliant line in all of the movies. It wasn't a funny line, but it was true because it's not the age, it's the mileage. Like, it doesn't matter how old you are, it's what you've done to your body in the course of those years.
You're not wrong, Arthur.
Yeah.
Because they're admitting they're getting too old for this crap.
Yes.
And instead of just saying, Murtaugh's line from the Lethal Weapon movies, I'm getting too old for this shit, he just literally said, it's not the age, it's the mileage.
Yeah. Yep. Have you ever seen the graphic novel Kingdom Come?
Yes.
You meet Batman, and the only way you can get about is because he's wearing an exoskeleton because of all the damage and injuries he's done to his body over the years.
Yep.
Oh.
That would be Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely it would. Going to, finishing the transition into the sequels, I have always been content to say that unless you can actually, no, that would be remakes. The sequels have to be a continuation of the story that fits the existing storyline and that can add to the story and be as on par as possible with the original, because I doubt there is I personally haven't seen a sequel that's better than the original movie.
Hi, Panina.
Yeah, we've got a Indiana Jones in the chat.
We have to recognize something when it comes to movie franchises. Okay. 3 movies called The Equalizer starring Denzel Washington does not make it a trilogy.
No.
Nope.
Because the stories are all different and involve different things. The only connective tissue is Denzel Washington playing Robert McCall. That's not really a trilogy. A trilogy has to have more connective tissue than that.
Yeah. It's got to have an underlying story that goes through all the different movies.
Right. Like one of my favorite examples of accidental trilogies are the 2 accidental trilogies in the Friday the 13th franchise. And it's why the movies work so well up to that point. Starting right off, you got the first movie is a standalone movie. That's the Pamela Voorhees story. But parts 2, 3, and 4 are the yes, Arthur, it kind of does, but no, it doesn't. And I'll explain that later. 2, 3, and 4 from the Friday the 13th franchise are the Jason Voorhees story, because that's where he comes out of hiding and starts killing, and it ends with him doing some more killing, and there's that one girl, and then in the third one, he dies again. The second time he dies. When Tommy Jarvis hacks the hell out of him with the machete. Die, played by Corey Feldman. That's one trilogy, because that's Jason's story from this point to that point. It's almost like it's his second life that's happening in those 3 movies until he dies again. But then part 4 is an interesting thing because it finishes off the Jason Voorhees story and starts the Tommy Jarvis story, which again is another trilogy. Tommy deals with the horrors of Jason and eventually kills him to save his sister. Then in the next movie, Tommy is the fourth one ends with Tommy with it being implied that Tommy's gone a bit kooky because
almost
of what he's dealt with.
Almost like whatever it is Jason is contagious.
No, nothing like that. Just Tommy is now not normal, is what we know. It's some things are implied, yes, but watch the movie. Part 5 is Tommy just coming out of a nut house, probably still on medication, which would explain why everything in part 5 is turned up to 11, because that whole movie's turned up to 11.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in not the best ways. But you can fix that in your head if you realize that this movie is very much the world how Tommy sees it while getting out of a nutcase or a nut house and being medicated. So that would make sense. Plus, part 5, as a bonus, very much mirrors the Pamela Voorhees story, because you've got the guy whose son whose son is a special needs kid who was killed by people who are supposed to be looking out for him, just like with Jason Voorhees. And so, the kid's parent goes on the kill crazy rampage like Pamela Voorhees. So it mirrors that story, so it fits into the universe on a couple of levels. And then in part 6, Tommy is effectively cured, I guess, of his madness and no longer on the drugs from the nut house, apparently. But he knows what he experienced, and he has to make sure that Jason's dead and gone for good. He has to. It's his obsession. It's like the last of his 12-step program.
Yeah, it's his white whale.
Yes. Yeah. The other thing I forgot to put on for this bullet point is prequels, but we'll get to that in a minute.
But then he brings Jason back. So, he kills Jason again at the end. But that's the Tommy Jarvis trilogy. Those are trilogies because there is connective tissue beyond an actor playing a character. There's a whole story for Jason Voorhees. There's a whole story for Tommy Jarvis, and after that, it largely becomes Jason Voorhees versus the blank. Jason Voorhees versus Carrie was part 7. Jason Voorhees versus
Willow.
Versus New York, and then the Love Boat was number 8.
Jason Voorhees, special guest on the Motor Show.
Number 9 was Jason Voorhees beats up Hal, I guess, beats up the worm. Then Jason punches outer space, and it goes on and on.
Jason versus the Banana Splits.
They stopped for some reason. They stopped focusing on good stories and how to put those stories to work for the franchise. It's one of the problems with the Halloween franchise too, is that one got butchered.
Yeah, it's because they lose
when
sight.
It comes we have to make a distinction, is what I'm saying. And after all of this yakking, there's a distinction to be made between a trilogy and just a couple of sequels.
And a cash grab.
Yeah, because to me, a trilogy.
Jason's Nightmare on Elm Road.
Hold on. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies, right? The 3 of them. That was a trilogy, right?
No.
Because, hold on. Let me finish.
Well, okay.
You got the first one, right?
Yeah.
The origin story, right?
Uh-huh.
That had a definite ending. But in the second one, what had happened in the first one, the consequences of the first one were touched upon in the second one, right?
Yes, they were.
Yep.
And the consequences of the first and second movie were heavily touched upon in the third one.
You're right.
That's a trilogy.
Yes. Yes. The thing is, it's not a Spider-Man trilogy. It's a Peter, Harry, and Mary Jane trilogy.
Yeah. But yeah.
Well, my
it's still a
whole
trilogy.
question is, when you set about to do a movie, like Jason, I doubt was meant to be a trilogy from the start, but
No, those two trilogies I mentioned were accidental, to be honest.
do you
But they were happy
plan a movie in its inception in your head with the future of possibly becoming a trilogy, and write it as one and hopes that it will become one? Or do you do what several movie studios have done, and we know we've seen this because it's evident? They'll make a one-shot movie, realize, oh my God, this shit blew up. Where do we go
Star
from
Wars.
here? And then just kind of tack on how they think it should progress because they didn't have outlines for subsequent movies.
A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Star Wars.
I mean, A Nightmare on Elm Street was probably a surprise hit.
Yeah.
The second one,
It got panned by the critics, if you remember.
slasher films always get panned by the critics.
Yeah.
Well, if you're making Back to the Future, yes. If you're making The Matrix,
he's
no,
right,
yeah, no
because
kidding.
they made the Back to the Future movies back to back, quite literally.
They did. Well, that was a planned trilogy. You could tell, and that's part of the thing. Okay, now Star Wars, because it was a trilogy, set in motion the trilogy machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Star Wars only became a trilogy because, let's face it, the what you call them and the studios thought, hey, this thing's blown up. We can make more money off this.
Yep.
It
Lucas
was never.
already had the other two written out.
No, the Star Wars was never a part of a bigger story. It never was until after it made a shit ton of money. Then Lucas turned on and said, "Oh yes, well this was just part of a larger body of work that I'd written." It wasn't. The people who saw his script, initial script, could tell you that it was nothing like the film we got. The only reason we got the film that we got was because of Steven Spielberg. The people in his the cast members who heavily rewrote their own lines, and his girlfriend.
Yeah, there's a lot of background talked about such things. The thing is that Lucas was at least smart enough to end Star Wars in a way that allowed for the rest to happen.
I think the end of as I like to call it, Return of the Gerbil, the third film.
Yeah.
That's where you should have left it. No more sequels, no prequels. Just leave it at that. It was a satisfactory ending. Everybody had a happy ending. Right. Even the main bad guy of the trilogy had a happy fucking ending, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
That was satisfying in the extreme.
Yeah, anything that they did after that was kind of asking for trouble.
Yeah.
The only way it would work is if you told a completely different story in that same universe.
Yeah.
Which has been a thing I've been going on about for a long time.
Yeah.
You don't remake the thing that's successful and with the story that's already finished.
That was one of my complaints about Scott Bakula's Star Trek prequel there. Why Enterprise? It doesn't have to be Enterprise if it's Star Trek.
No, it doesn't.
Now here is a twofold question. Okay. Do you think prequels are necessary, and when does a franchise need to stop making sequels?
I think prequels are unnecessary if things are done right. However, let's say I did a trilogy of a slasher film, okay? Mm-hmm. Involving my killer, and there's some backstory. Well, no, let's do it the way it really happened. Charlie Bowles from Russellville. You're probably not going to recognize the reference, but that name and that town was mentioned in the first Halloween. Charlie Bowles from Russellville one night went crazy and murdered his family. No one ever knew why. It's one line of dialogue, but right there with that one line of dialogue, if you finish a Halloween trilogy, you can go back and do something of a period piece trilogy examining what happened with Charlie Bowles in Russellville with his family.
Yeah.
I would say that.
Now, see if you're doing a Halloween franchise that's an anthology series like who is he? John Carpenter wanted to. That would be one way to do it without. See, when they did it with Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, they messed up because that didn't take place in the same universe as the Michael Myers story.
Yeah.
Prequels are like feet. Everyone knows they exist, but obsessing over them is a little weird. I agree.
I should have started answering before Mitch did because I would have been a lot quicker.
What's that?
I was going to say, I don't think prequels are necessary, really. Some things are best left unsaid, and
some mysteries are best left unsolved, even.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. But some things are best left unsaid, some mysteries are left unsolved, and left for the fans to think about.
If I may interject, a couple of two major things that they always bring up when we come up with, leave mysteries as mysteries. And I'm going back to Doctor Who, and the two that you guys probably know I'm going to allude to is the silence and the weeping angels.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
They were absolutely fucking terrifying until they explained what they were.
Yep.
Yeah.
They were creepy as hell.
The ancients in Stargate. When they showed the ancients.
Oh, yeah.
When they actually showed the ancients, they were terrible. Excuse me, telephone.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know what he's going to say, but I don't want to pee in his Cheerios,
Yeah.
But what was the question? The question was, do we need sequels? No, what was the questions, Maddie?
Are prequels necessary? And when in the course of a franchise should sequels be no longer a thing? I mean, when is the last movie a last movie?
I apply the same rule to both sequels and prequels. You have to let some stories end. One of the problems with the Halloween franchise is they didn't let the Michael Myers story end. And even this latest David Gordon Green so-called trilogy, because that's not a trilogy either, it at least does away with Michael Myers. Yeah. And I can respect that.
Fucking telesales.
But I'm going to say the same thing about the sequels that I say about the prequels. You have to lay groundwork in your movies. If you want to go beyond one trilogy or one story, you do have to lay the groundwork for other stories to take place, but they take place in that universe. It can work for sequels or prequels. Yeah. It can work either way. But the important thing is that you maintain the integrity of that universe.
Yeah.
What I was going to say about sequels is, because you asked when's the time to stop making sequels. You progress a story through sequels until it reaches a satisfactory conclusion.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't go beyond that point.
So, who here, now that I'm going to segue into this, who here absolutely hates retconning? Who here can actually see the sense in it?
Maddie, before you go on, I'm definitely online right now, booking my ticket to the United States. I have located where Arthur Nix lives. I'm going to, I've arranged for my firearms license to be waiting for me when I get off the plane.
That's not how it works.
Coming for you, Nix.
What was your question now, Maddie?
All right. Retconning. Do you see the sense in it, or do you think it should not have been a thing to begin with?
I don't think it should have been a thing to begin with, because retconning usually happens when you've got established law. The fan base knows it, right? And if it's a popular franchise like Star Trek, for example, Star Wars, even people who aren't fans know the gist of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go and retcon it, which means everybody's got to start from scratch all over again, or you're putting things that you think are good, but nobody else does. Retconning is generally bad news.
Now, along with retconning, do you think adding a multiverse to anything is a poor excuse for bad writing?
Actually, not. Adding a multiverse to something isn't bad writing, and it's not retconning, because what might otherwise be a retcon is taking place in a different reality and does not affect your prime story base. So it's not bad writing. It's a great place to experiment with stuff, though.
Yeah.
Now,
well, what about something like Flashpoint?
Actually, I enjoy Flashpoint in the comics, not so much in the animated movie. And definitely not the CW's version of it. It was a great way of experimenting with the characters, what might have been, what wasn't. But to me, it worked.
Well, that's why Jason never really went to outer space. Because that's a what if.
Yeah.
It was his evil twin, Kevin, actually.
Yeah. It was Brian Voorhees. No, see, okay. Retconning, I'm not fond of retconning in general.
Me either.
But sometimes I do recognize that there can be a necessity. One of my favorite examples of a retcon I hate is Laurie Strode being made Michael Myers' sister.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't the case in the first movie. That fact didn't pop up until the second movie. And then only because it was late at night, John Carpenter had to write a sequel, and he had a six-pack.
Yeah.
That's his own words.
Couple of retcons I don't like.
That kind of a retcon I don't like, but we're about to get to this next topic, and that's where I go a couple of interesting directions.
Yep.
Couple of retcons. I don't know if you can call them retcons actually, but it's something I don't like. Retro inserted characters. The Blue Marvel. Marvel. You've got the Blue Marvel, right? This black superhero who was around before the other superheroes, apart from the Sentinel, who the retconned in, but he made everybody forget about him
for some reason.
Yeah, and then there was this black guy who was a super soldier before Captain America, but because he was black, they were just testing the super soldier serum, and they used him in case it was lethal.
Isaiah Bradley.
I hate retro inserted characters.
I generally do too, but I got to say this when it comes to Isaiah Bradley. I really like the job Carl Lumbly did in Falcon and the Winter Soldier as Isaiah Bradley. I actually do think that there's some interesting story to explore with that character. And the one thing that I like about that better than what we see now with the, what do they call it? With the race and gender swapping that we get now.
Yeah.
Is that Isaiah Bradley was his own character. He wasn't just Steve Rogers in a dress.
No.
Like they would do today.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, to me, it's like, I know it was explained to me that somehow, somewhere, it became, the Captain America thing became a mantle, even though to me in my head, that still doesn't sound right. The Falcon was his own established character. He was his own character with his own personality, his own way of doing anything. And to me, giving him the mantle of Captain America now puts him in the shadow of a large pair of boots that he needs to fill.
Yes.
Yes,
and that to me, that was a disservice to the Falcon as a character.
I agree.
Mind one character, I don't think you'd actually call him a retro insert or a retcon, was the Winter Soldier. Yeah. Because Bucky Barnes, the established character, he died. Yeah, he apparently died in World War II, and then you find out years later he's been the Winter Soldier all this time. Yeah, that actually worked well.
Yeah, that's probably accidental good storytelling.
Yeah, but that wasn't a retro insert.
Right.
No. It wasn't. I mean, it's like in the case of Captain America in the live action films, and I'm keeping it to the live action films, the way they wrote him as a soldier out of time was very well done, in my opinion.
Which one?
Because for the Avengers ensemble movies,
No, I mean which character? Captain America or the Winter Soldier?
I said Captain America.
Right.
I mentioned
Sorry.
Captain America. Writing him the way they did after his 70 some odd year sleep, it fits. It was good writing because obviously if you're going to be out of the loop that long, you've got one hell of a learning curve to go through, in other words, to catch up with everybody else.
It was also good acting as well, because
yes, it was.
Even in Endgame, really, Chris Evans still moved, spoke, and acted like somebody from the 40s.
Yep.
And I'm going to get to that particular thing in adaptations. But to me, we're going to go to remakes and reboots first. And to me, I've always been the long proponent of the only reason to remake a movie is if you think you can enhance it in any particular way and improve upon it. And my main example of this is when Lucas went back and remastered his original trilogy to add in all the elements that he wanted to add in before and couldn't because of the limits to the technology.
That wasn't a remake, though. That was just an visual enhancement.
They did also add in a couple of extra scenes here and there in order to show the stuff. But it was like, to me, it was brilliantly done. It was CGI, subtly done, which is the way I like my CGI.
Apart from one thing, hand shot first.
Well,
yeah. That'll never get old.
But I mean, out of when he remastered and re-released the original trilogy, to this day, them walking through the halls of Cloud City and Bespin and you being able to look out the windows and seeing what's going on was absolutely spectacular to me.
Oh yeah,
that was a wonderful
gorgeous
enhancement in addition to the movie. It was absolutely fucking gorgeous.
I agree.
Remakes nowadays, it's this whole updating for a modern audience, and to me, you're gutting the characters in order to once again hammer in home a current ideology that had nothing to do with the original lore to begin with. And when you do this, you wind up remaking something that is soulless, that's a shadow of its former self, that really didn't need to be done to begin with.
That's kind of how I feel about cover versions of songs.
Yeah.
In some cases, yeah, but Hooked on a Feeling was a cover version that Blue Suede did, but the Blue Suede version is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
We don't talk about the new Velma around here.
The Thing.
I try not to.
The
Thing is another example of a reboot done or a remake done right, but it wasn't really a remake.
It was a prequel.
Yeah.
No, I'm not talking about the Thing from 2011.
Oh, you're talking about the Kurt Russell one?
Yes, the real one.
Yeah, well, that was almost entirely different movie.
Yeah, it was. It was more closely related, I believe, to the book than it was to the first
wasn't
movie.
The book Who Goes Here?
I don't remember the name of the original book, to be honest.
No.
But look, here's the deal when it comes to the remake. Mm-hmm. I think the best rule of thumb to follow is you don't remake the success. You remake the good idea that was executed poorly.
Yeah.
However, let's imagine for just a moment that that there's more Halloween on the way. Like I said, in this David Gordon Green so-called trilogy, he was fed into a car grinder at the end of the third movie. So Michael Myers is no more.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to do another Halloween movie that focuses on Myers, we almost have to reboot. Which is, at this point, I don't care because the franchise had been handled badly.
Yeah.
First, you have the first movie. Great movie. Absolutely brilliant. It's artistic. It's thrilling. It's shocking. It's creepy as hell. It's not even all that gory, but it really gets under your skin. It's a great movie, okay? It's a great
Now,
piece of work and a great piece of art. Now, you get to that second movie, John Carpenter and Deborah Hill just weren't all that interested in doing it again. So, they kind of phoned it in. That's why, late at night with a 6-pack of beer and a script.
Was that Season of the Witch?
No, that was the second Halloween 2. Season of the Witch was the big departure. That's the first place that the
because
franchise was ill-served.
It
So
had
that's
nothing to do with the franchise. Did
Halloween movie with the pumpkin heads.
Yeah, with the mask of the pumpkin witch and the skeleton.
Okay, cool.
9 more days till Halloween, Silver Shamrock. That whole thing. Do. It just got into your head and it's like, oh God, stop it with that fucking song. No, see, that was a disservice to the franchise because on its own, it's a decent movie. I'm not part of the people. I'm not one of the people who love it, but I don't hate it either. It's a decent movie, but it comes across to me like a made-for-TV movie.
Oh, so, talking about TV movies.
I think. No, hold on.
Okay.
This I'm going to get involved here because I have to explain some of this stuff that they did with the franchise in order to get to my justification for a remake and a reboot. But that movie should have been a different thing, not under the Halloween banner.
Yeah.
But then we get to Halloween 4 where it's like, okay, Jamie Lee Curtis's star was starting to rise, so she was too good for slasher films, so we'll forget about her. But, hey, look, Laurie Strode had a daughter, and she died in a car wreck. So now Michael's got a niece, and when he finds out he's got a niece, he comes back. Because they mention a niece in the ambulance when they're transferring him to a different facility. And he breaks out of the ambulance and kills the people. He says, I'm Michael Myers, hear me roar. And goes about killing to get to his niece for some reason. Yeah. But now we've got this whole thing where not only did he have a sister, but now we need... what do you mean I'll bottom out on the topic? What the hell does that mean? House of Geek never played just a tip. Okay, whatever. You've gone weird, Arthur. No, but now for some reason he has to kill every member of his family, not just his sisters. Whatever. Hold on, Batman. I'm not done yet.
Sorry, I thought you had.
No, this is gonna go. This is gonna be a minute, maybe a minute and a half. So then they blow him up at the end. He goes down a well. Turns out he's been helped for a year by a homeless man living in the wild for some reason. And then next Halloween comes by. Hey, I'm putting my mask back on, and I still got to kill that niece of mine. But now we've increased the lore to include the shadowy figure, the man in black, who gets off a bus, kicks a dog, has the same tattoo on his wrist that Michael does for some reason. When did Michael get the tattoo? We never heard about it until now. See you, Ghost Dog. Now Michael's got this tattoo, and now this other guy, he's got the same tattoo. And now, wait, this guy's in the Myers house for some reason. Well, Dr. Loomis is looking around, but Dr. Loomis doesn't see him because he's the man in black. He's the shadowy figure. Where did he come from? Where's he going? What's he doing in here? Then later, when they catch Michael and got him all handcuffed and locked up behind bars with his mask still on, by the way, the man in black shows up again, shoots up the police station, and breaks Michael out. Oh, my God. End of movie. Now what's happening? Next movie, Jamie Lloyd, Michael's niece, is pregnant because she's now 15 or 16 or something. So she's old enough to get pregnant, but still a minor or whatever. Okay, movie, do you. And now Paul Rudd has to help her. He now plays Tommy Doyle. The other Tommy in the horror franchise is Tommy Jarvis and Tommy Doyle. The two Tommies should get together and go bowling, compare notes and whatnot. But now there's Tommy Doyle, and he's got to take care of Jamie's baby because Jamie dies after she gives birth to the baby in a bus bathroom, whatever. Then, and then for some reason, Michael's part of this whole cult of Thorn. And he's the thing that has to go out and do the killings for the Cult of Thorn to be the Cult of Thorn. Because without the killing, there's no Cult of Thorn. I don't know what the fuck's going on anymore. This franchise is terribly underserved.
Convoluted. Yeah.
No, it's just underserved. It's they treat it so. I'm still not done, Batman. I'm going to go on about. I want to finish this point because I will forget.
It's going to be my turn because I'm. Yeah. Go ahead.
Look, they went to crazy directions with this franchise. Then we get, now Halloween water because H2O for some reason because Hollywood's dumb. Okay, so now Jamie Lee Curtis is back because someone slipped and fell into some money and said, "Hey, let's make another movie." But this time she gets to kill Michael at the end, but it's not really Michael because the fucking thing was a fucking hat, and it's some. Oh, he crushed the paramedic's throat so he couldn't talk. So it wasn't really Michael whose head she chopped off. It was a paramedic with the crushed throat because Michael switched places. Blah 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 blah. Then JR woke up and it was all a fucking dream. Whatever. Next movie, before Busta Rhymes kicks Michael Myers, fucking Jamie Lee Curtis gets dumped off the top of a building and dies, apparently. So that's the end of Laurie Strode again. Look, too many different timelines, too many bullshit justifications for what happened with all these characters. And honest to God, the best way to serve Halloween at that point was to stop putting Jamie Lee Curtis in these movies.
Yeah.
Now, look, here's my point. I have to go through all that so you understand the point I'm making, because I know not a lot of people watch these movies because they went stupid. Here's what we do. We have to remake the original Halloween. And the only reason I say that, it's not to introduce it to a new audience or to give it or to fill it with an agenda or anything like that. We want to tell the same basic story. Yeah, we're going to have to accommodate some new things that have happened in the world since then, like the cell phone. Okay? We have to make accommodations for that kind of stuff. But otherwise, we tell the same story with the same characters, and we don't deviate very far from the original.
Yeah.
And now there's a reason I want to do this, and it's because Halloween 4, the first one with Michael's niece, was actually a good movie. There's a couple of dumb little things in it, but overall, it was a good movie.
Yeah.
It was a good Halloween movie, too. And it seems to me to be kind of a shame that the Jamie Lloyd character has been so underserved in this franchise as well as anything else. Because, okay, we got that first Halloween movie, we remake that and got it out of the way. Maybe this time no, it's better if Michael's not successful, I guess, and doesn't wind up killing Laurie. But we can have another Jamie Lloyd character. It's not going to be his niece. It's probably going to be another friend of Laurie's who wasn't around during the first movie, because Jamie Lloyd needs to be in these movies. We need that character.
Yeah.
And we can do a trilogy where it winds up being the end of the third movie could be Michael versus Jamie and Laurie. And we get a resolution that is final. But in that trilogy, what do? Because we're Hollywood, or we're not Hollywood, but we're a movie company, and we want to be able to maintain a big IP and a big franchise if we can. We lay little pieces of groundwork that we can call upon later if this trilogy is successful enough to continue the franchise in a different way, away from the Michael Myers story. So basically, we remake a Michael Myers trilogy in the Halloween universe, to restart the Halloween universe, and then we have a way to steer away from Michael Myers.
Yeah.
A way that works. We have our Charlie Bowles.
Yeah. It was like my thing, and my mom doesn't agree with me. And I think, to me, a fairly good remake of an older movie was the most recent remake of King Kong.
The one with
is that the Jack Black one?
The one with Jack Black, the one with Jack Black.
The one I've got in my DVD collection.
Skull Island one. I felt it was really contrived. Yeah.
Yes,
the
it
Skull
was.
Island
Skull
one, where
Island
you
one
had
was.
Samuel L. Jackson trying to kill the big gorilla, I didn't like. But the one with Jack Black, I absolutely adore.
Yeah, because they were very faithful to the original.
Yeah.
Very faithful.
Yeah.
And that's another one that failed, pretty much failed at the box office primarily because of the critics.
Yeah. I mean, I've never really listened to the critics.
Generally, neither do I.
Well,
Catches my fancy, I'll go see it. But
I've listened to them, but I usually do the opposite of what they suggest.
Yeah.
Right, there's that as well.
Now, what I put this last one on here because this has become, slowly some people are trying to etch it back in. And to me, the most recent, and I'm going to call it more of a passing of the torch, is the most recent Ghostbusters films where the kids took up the mantle.
I have yet to see that one.
I haven't seen it either, but from the trailers that I had seen and stuff, it's like they're paying homage to the actor that passed. It was basically a continuation with that particular character's child, I think it was, or niece or something.
It was Egon's daughter and actually his daughter's kid.
Yeah. So
I think who stumbled upon the
it was
Ecto one.
that to me. Yeah, that to me is a good passing of the torch. And then you get to figure out why Egon kept researching this stuff and why he was trying to resolve an issue that they had possibly created from the first movie. So all that tied in.
You know what else it does? It continues this. It's a different story, but in the same universe.
Yeah.
Like I keep saying.
Yep. It's like 2016 Ghostbusters, what I saw of it and what I've heard of it, it was like one long fucking SNL skit that should have never happened.
It wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And recent SNL isn't that good either. So that's why I understood
there's only
where people were going when they described it that way.
Actual part in the 2016 Ghostbusters film that was actually funny. And that's the bit where I keep forgetting his name. Chris Hemsworth. They say, "Oh, you haven't put any sugar in this coffee," so he tries it and then he spits it out. That's the only funny bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's to me they put ideology in it. They made it a feminist thing and they fucked it up. And they took what I believe was one of the more important parts, one of the more cohesive parts from the original franchise, and they turned it into a joke. And that was the receptionist position in which they put him in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because Annie Potts' character was the linchpin of that entire operation. She was the one doing the shipping. She was the one receiving the stuff. She was the one answering the phone calls. She was the one dispatching them. The whole 9 yards. She ran the show. And
she was never the butt of the joke.
No, and the black guy whose
Winston
name
Zedmore.
I can't remember. Thank you, Winston. He was the grounding force, because you always have to have a grounding force when you're surrounded by nerds. And you had 3 science nerds that weren't getting the picture until Winston said, "Hey, the dead are rising again. This is a lot bigger than you think it is."
No, you had two science nerds and
a game show host.
Yeah,
basically, and the third guy, was in it for the money.
Yeah, he was in it for the money, but he was a grounding force, because he was the one pointing out the obvious stuff that he was seeing that the scientist and the marketing manager, which is what the game show host was. Yeah.
Yep.
He was pointing out the common sense stuff that was going over his head.
Yeah,
and I'm sure Winston Zeddemore first said, "If there's a paycheck in it, I'm there." But then he slipped into the role of going, "Hey guys, you're not seeing the bigger picture because you're only focusing on this job, and this job." It's and that's what worked. It was lightning in a bottle. Now the second Ghostbusters movie wasn't that great.
It was still good enough.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that Winston Zedmore delivered the most important line in the movie Ghostbusters. That line was, "Tell him about the Twinkie."
Right?
No, actually, the most important line was, "Yes, Your Honor, this man has no penis."
That wasn't Winston Zedmore.
I
Yeah,
know.
he's talking about Winston Zeddemore. But yeah, you're right, because this, once again, as we all know, because it's an all too familiar trope in these movies, that the scientists will slip into technical jargon regardless of whether anybody else in the room can understand what's going on. Which is why,
Yep.
once again, Winston said, "Tell him about the Twinkie." Like, explain in layman's terms what you're
Exactly.
telling us in
Yeah.
tech speak, because most of us don't speak tech.
Exactly. That's why it's the most important line in the movie.
Skies are color of black sackcloth. Cats and dogs living together.
Mass
Mass
hysteria. Yeah.
Yep.
Which leads us to adaptations. And these particular adaptations are either comic books to live action, or books to movies, or lore to movies. And yes, I am referring to the Rings of Power with that one, and upcoming projects, because I'm still a little iffy on the upcoming projects. But first, we're going to touch on what I believe is the most grievous error in the MCU, and that's the fact that they rewrote the purpose of Thanos in the Infinity Gauntlet series.
Yep.
Thanos was not a character that was worried about scarcity in commodities and trying to balance the world. His main focus in the comic books was impressing Death, because he wanted to court
He wanted to give that skeleton a bone of his own.
Yeah, he did. And when he gained the rings, see, this is why when you adapt something, if you're not true to it, the people that have actually read the stuff will point it out and go, hey, wait a minute. Because there was a point in the comic where he was getting angry because Death wasn't speaking to him, and it was Mephisto or Mephistopheles, I think it was Mephisto. That told him, in gaining the gems and putting them in the gauntlet, you have risen yourself to a higher status, and she feels she is no longer worthy to speak to you. Basically, you became more powerful than she can. She no longer thinks she's on even footing with you.
The thing is, Death always spurned Thanos.
Yeah, because Death and Deadpool had a thing. Or Deadpool had a thing with Death or something. I don't know.
Something like that, yeah. But yeah, they got Thanos totally and utterly wrong. They even got his origin wrong as well. I mean, he was basically the mutant son of Mentor, I think it was, the leader of the Titans who lived the leader of the Eternals who lived on Titan.
Now, I have to disagree with you on the movies in conjunction with the comic books with the Gauntlet series, because they gave him more depth. There was more interaction between him and Mephisto, and then the mysterious floating corpse that turned out to be his daughter that he completely contorted into something unrecognizable. It brought in, the comics did something no other comics did before it, from my understanding, in the Infinity Gauntlet series. It brought heroes together with villains because it affected everyone.
Yep.
Yeah.
The first villain it affected was Doctor Doom, because even though people see him as a villain, he's more of an anti-hero, but he is very fucking dedicated to his country and his countrymen. And when half of his countrymen disappeared, he's like, okay, I've got to find out what the fuck is going on, because this isn't right. Half of my people just poofed out of existence. And everybody teamed up. It was the first time in any comic, in any Marvel comics with the X-Men in it, that you actually saw Logan scared, because in the snap of fingers, all of his bones disappeared. And as soon as he regrew the bones, and they were like, okay, we got to go for round 2 for Thanos, it's the first time you heard Logan go, I'm out.
Yes, Logan doesn't back out of a fight.
Yeah.
No, and that's the first time he did. And because he was literally shown his mortality at that point, like, okay, if he can blink my bones out of existence, next time it's going to be me.
Yep.
And I can't even get close to this guy, which is why I thought the comic books should have been more faithfully adapted into the movies, even though there were licensing issues with X-Men not being part of
Yeah.
the MCU and other stuff.
They
But
took,
they still could have done it
they took a
and
few
made it better than what it was.
liberties with the MCU. I think it's because they based it more on the Ultimate Universe than the mainstream universe.
In part, yeah.
I'm still pissed that they took Thor, and because of China doesn't like anything to do with gods, they decided, oh, well, he just comes from outer space now.
Yeah, this whole pandering to China is bullshit.
Oh, God. The worst thing about the Thor, I mean, I like the Thor original origin story, right?
Uh-huh.
But there's the start where Thor and Loki are like 9-year-old, and Odin's telling them how they arrived on Earth to battle the ice giants in the 12th century.
Yeah.
The 12th fucking century, when Thor and the Norse gods are already being worshipped.
Right.
Yep.
They just didn't even bother doing the blindest bit of research for that bit.
No, they didn't. But I mean, it's like adaptations to me. Now, I'm willing to do certain liberties depending on whether it's a movie adaptation or you're putting it into a TV series. Case in point, I still have my issues with the Lord of the Rings movies, even though they were well done and they were still in the spirit of Tolkien. There were some things that irked me. There were some things that I wasn't happy with. Same thing with the Harry Potter franchise, because to this damn day, all it would have taken was an extra 5 or 10 minutes to explain to everyone in the movie why Neville hated Bellatrix Lestrange so much, and they left it out. They left it the fuck out. And that was a key piece of the story, in my opinion, because all you see is him pissed off at this woman, but they never took the time to put in the hospital scene where they were visiting Weasley's dad, and they see Neville cross into the ward of incurable curses, and that's when they find out that Bellatrix Lestrange cursed both of his parents, and they no longer recognize him.
See, I get the same reaction when they created Ultron without Henry Pym.
Yeah.
That was another thorn in my side. Because it was Pym. It was Pym.
Yep.
Yeah, it was basically Henry Pym was Dr. Richard Daystrom, basically.
Yeah.
From the original Star Trek. He imprinted his own neural engrams onto the chips or onto the circuitry that made up Ultron, you know?
I wonder if that's where they got it from.
It may be, I don't know. But it is kind of a similar story. So who knows? But
go ahead.
That's the way they did it. It cheapened the whole story, and it made the whole story less personal than it should have been.
Yeah.
Do you know what else annoys me about the Marvel movies? And it's not the movies themselves. It's you're on a YouTube channel that's explaining about a comic book character, right? And then you get some nerk in the comments saying, "Oh, well, that's wrong, and he does this and he does that," and instantly, you know the guy's on about the movie, so you have to explain to him. He goes, well, you're wrong, see, because he did this and he did that and he did the other.
Yeah.
You can't tell the guy that he's trying to show his knowledge of the comics by talking about the fucking movies.
Yep.
Right.
That's true, Arthur. That's true. No, I mean, it's like, I understand that for movies you have time crunches, so there's some things that have to be truncated. But if you leave out key elements in the book, then the movies won't make sense. One example that keeps coming to my mind is Needful Things. If you read the book in Needful Things, obviously Stephen King wrote it. The setup is there. The background is there. Why the man is there is fully explained.
Yep.
When you watch the movie, the background has been taken out, and it's just this guy selling, having this shop and selling these things and weaving havoc. No particular reason why until the end of the movie, when everybody's piecing the stuff together, and it's like, this stuff was all woven throughout, and these are key pieces you should have left in, but you left out. And they could have been put in, but they weren't. And then the adaptations that really get me are book adaptations to TV series. And yes, I am talking about the fucking Wheel of Time at this point. You have so many fucking episodes and so many seasons to take your time to faithfully adapt the source material, to tell the story in all of its, in all of its parts, because it's a TV series. You can do this.
Too busy with their agenda.
But you're too busy changing the characters, changing who they are, changing their importance, changing their place, and trying to smash too many books into one season when you can spread this out over so many seasons and make it a cohesive story.
I'm changing the law of how the world works. The dragon could be born as a man or a what? No. The dragon could only be a man.
It was like the best reaction I saw was my mom, because she watched the show first. I've read the books. Well, most of the books. Okay. Mom hadn't read the books when we watched the first season. So she went back and I bought her the first set of books, and she wound up buying the rest of them through Amazon. And so started her reading the books, me going downstairs to watch TV. And the first thing she said was, half the stuff we saw in the first season is all wrong is all wrong. It has nothing to do with the books. I'm like, that's what I was trying to tell you. She goes, Perrin wasn't married in the books. No, he wasn't.
Nope.
Well, that brings the other edit. Go on.
All of the main female characters in the books, Egwene, or whatever you call her, Nynaeve, and that fucking princess.
Yeah.
They're all spoilt brats.
Yeah.
The Aes Sedai were the worst spoilt brats.
Yeah. Because, Nynaeve was the wise woman of the village. Nynaeve didn't realize that she could tap into the source until she was in like a high stress situation, or she was really concentrating on healing somebody, but she didn't realize that what she was doing was tapping into the source, because there was a physical block there to where she couldn't consciously touch it and feel it. And it wasn't until later, till she almost fucking drowned, that she figured out how to damn touch, reach in there and tap into the source. And that's character creation, but they cut everything short, and it's like, no, this isn't the way this shit works. You have an entire series to play with, and you're trying to cram all this shit in, including changing all the characters, which isn't going to work for you in the long run.
Now, to segue a little bit into another area of adaptations, let me ask you guys this question. Aren't you glad they never made a Duke Nukem movie?
Oh my God, yes.
Because that would have been a piece of shit.
Yeah, it would have. It would have been a Duchess Nukem movie. You know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be like Dolph Lundgren with Bruce Campbell's voice.
You know what's pissing me off even more? It was shown most recently in the worst Thor movie that they made, the recent one.
Yeah.
Love and Thunder.
Yeah, is female kings.
Oh,
you cannot have a female king.
No, you cannot.
It's
look what they did.
Partially it's because these people writing this shit do not realize that a king regent, that is the king who was actually ruling a country, is equal in power to a queen regent.
Yep.
Yeah.
The only difference is their titles, because one's a male and one female. Aside from that, they're of equal power, equal stature.
Yeah.
Oh no, the king's higher than the queen, so to be politically correct, she's going to have to be king of Asgard.
No, that's just stupid writing. It's not even bad writing; it's stupid writing.
And then when she says, "Well, a king needs her queen,"
shut up, lady.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like when they
shut up, Taika Waititi.
Just one moment. There's only one reason a king needs a queen. That's to produce an heir.
Yep.
How are two women going to produce an heir? Well, the gods aren't they? Fuck off. No, they're not. Not in the MCU.
Right? Well, it's like when they did the Rings of Power. Everything I never watched. Thank God I didn't all I watched was the clips that were uploaded and the terrible way they portrayed Galadriel, because Galadriel is not like that in any way, shape, form, or fashion in the books that I read. Now I understand. Their first mistake was to make a deal, to make a series based on the appendices, because it's the only thing they could use. That was a piss poor fucking deal to begin with. Okay, you don't. When you have this whole breadth of literature, and they're like, no, you can only use this. There should have been a deal. There should not have been a deal. There should not have been a show. Period. Because the appendices is a spit in the bucket when you look at the entire Tolkien lore and the universe.
Oh yeah, and then you get Lenny Henry, who's playing a halfling.
And now there's
and they were black because Tolkien said they were black. No, he said they were dark skinned.
No.
That's not black. That could mean like
that could mean
anything.
That could mean like
the
way he described it. Think of who Tolkien was. He says somebody's dark skinned. He probably means something like Italians.
Maybe.
Or tan. Yeah, tan people.
Yeah, or Mediterraneans.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is what's coming up next, I think in 2024, sold to, I can't remember, I'm probably going to wind up doing a blog post of this and putting in my 2 cents, is there's going to be an animated movie in the Lord of the Rings universe where they're going to tell the story of the ancestor of Theoden, the guy who only has 6 lines in the appendices. Now, how the fuck are you going to turn 6 lines into a 90-minute animated movie? I have no clue.
They're going to make it up as they go.
Yeah, which is going to be a piece of shit.
They're probably going to rewrite Gandalf as a woman.
It's going to be written by an 8-year-old who keeps saying "and then." You know, and then he gets a sword, and then he goes to the castle, and then he meets the princess, and it's going to be that. Yeah,
it's going to be that. And now we have reached, unless you guys want to add anything else to the adaptation.
Well, I just the adaptation thing, another area that's never been well served is video games. There have been a couple of successes, make no mistake. Yeah. But they've never figured out that to successfully adapt a video game to a movie, tell the story of the video game in the movie.
They did that with one of the Resident Evil animated movie.
Yeah. They did.
And they did it well.
Yes, they did. But the other Resident Evil, at least some of those movies were successful.
But they weren't good.
But but they weren't Resident Evil either.
Yeah.
They had all the stage dressing of a Resident Evil story, but they just weren't.
Only just. I mean, from the first one to the last one, there was nothing good about them, and it highlighted something for me. Mila Jovovich, or whatever you call her, every movie she is in stinks.
I don't think so. Actually, kind of. I've seen her in a couple of different things that are actually good.
Every science fiction movie she's in stinks, I should say.
The Fifth Element.
Yeah, just proving my point here.
That movie's at least funny.
No.
But there's a movie called Cuffs when she was younger that she was in.
I mean,
not starring, but she played opposite of Christian Slater.
One of the things about The Fifth Element is I thought it was a stupid story. And her character, the sad thing is, I think she's a good actress, but the character she was playing and the way she was directed to play it,
Lilu?
Yeah, just annoying. And then you had Chris
Multi-pass.
Tucker. Then you had Chris Tucker.
Oh God, Ruby Rod.
Yeah.
Why do I know these fucking names?
5 minutes into Chris Tucker being in the movie, I turned it off.
Yeah.
And yet, those films he made with Jackie Chan, they were good.
Those were fun.
But again, that's lightning in a bottle. That doesn't happen all that often. It was a perfect amalgamation of 2 different acting styles coming together to make one hell of a franchise.
Yeah, I'm surprised the Chinese allowed it because Chris Tucker's black.
And I love outtakes because Chris was kind of picking on Jackie Chan for his lack of being fluent in English, only for him not to be able to say she ni, and Jackie looking at him in the bloopers going, "It's not that easy, is it?"
And then there was those ones he did with was it Owen Wilson?
Oh, Shanghai Nights Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights.
Yeah. What's your name? Chong Wang.
Yep.
That's Chong Wang. That's no name for a cowboy.
Now, see, Shanghai Noon was a good popcorn comedy kind of movie.
Yeah.
Shanghai Nights was just, oh God, can it just be done?
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't like Owen Wilson. He bores me.
I like Luke Wilson, his brother.
The only line in Shanghai Nights that I like was when they were trying to get out of the burning building, and Jackie Chan did his Jackie Chan thing. His sister did the Jackie Chan thing, and then Jackie Chan looked back down at him, and Owen Wilson was like, "What in our history together makes you even think I'm capable of doing anything like that?"
But anyway, back to the video game adaptations. That's another area that is just an absolute failure when it comes to filmmaking.
Yeah. Well,
they don't get it. I think
we can safely blame Arthur Nix for that.
No. See, here's what happens. Here's what happens when they adapt a. Well, it's the same mistake they make when they adapt anything. They try to put all the cool stuff from every iteration of the game into one movie.
Well, I mean, I think they did a pretty good job of adapting Lara Croft, the Tomb Raider.
I don't know, because I never played that game and I never watched that movie.
Something a friend of mine pointed out about that movie, because they filmed it in reverse, right?
Mm.
But if you're watching it,
that seems expensive.
Tits get bigger. It's because they made the film in reverse. So at the start, the scenes which are set at the start, they actually filmed last, and she's actually exercised a lot of her weight off, so her tits are smaller. And as you go through the film, her tits are getting bigger.
But see, the Tomb Raider movie, it going back to earlier in our discussion today, it's an Angelina Jolie as Lara Croft movie.
Yeah.
The casting is all wrong.
Yeah.
That's somewhere between figuring out that casting formula where you don't cast a big name to be your big name superhero because you're going to get big name as big name superhero. It's just not going to be a thing. You don't want Nick Cage as Spider-Man because what?
You certainly don't want him as Superman. That was ugly.
Well, because
that was incomplete. To be fair,
Nicolas Cage only plays Nicolas Cage.
Now, yeah. I mean, but Nicolas Cage is always entertaining too.
Yeah.
When it comes to a Nick Cage movie, let's face it, you got to know what you're in for.
Oh, have you seen was it Season of the Witch or just The Witch?
I don't know. I did recently see Renfield.
I haven't seen that yet.
I liked him as Ghost Rider. I liked
not the second one.
Then again, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Yeah, the first one. That's what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about actors like Henry Cavill sticking toward, loving and wanting to be true to what the character actually is. In the first movie, he was pretty good. I mean, I liked him as Ghost Rider in the first movie.
Yeah, I liked him as Ghost Rider in the first one, but it wasn't Ghost Rider and it wasn't Johnny Blaze.
It could have been a great old Johnny Blaze. Because, Nick Cage at that point was no spring chicken.
Yeah, and Johnny Blaze, when he first became Ghost Rider, and pretty much throughout it, because how slowly characters age in comics, he was a young man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The, oh, God, what was it? Arthur pointed out that the Warcraft movie was the world's largest unskippable cutscene. And again, that kind of illustrates another problem with adapting a video game. Because they're going to do the same thing they do in the comic books. Video games are chock full of cutscenes. Not all of them are good.
Well,
in fact, most of them aren't good at all.
When you look at an MMO like World of Warcraft, there's a lot of fucking lore there. There's a lot of, new additions to it. So trying to cram all that into one movie really wasn't going to work very well.
Again, that's with the Batman v Superman movie.
Yeah.
The only reason they made that movie is because they wanted Batman in that fucking suit to fight Superman. That's the whole point of that movie. It's a hack job. Damn hack job. Here's why. Because you cannot have the Batman meets Superman movie be the one where they have the big punch up. It's got to be the one where the fight they have is a little more on the intellectual edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like was done in the Superman the Animated Series.
Yeah, pretty much. It's the same mistake. They wanted to have that cool scene from the big graphic novel. Same thing with the video game movie. They try to take the cool scenes from probably from 3 or more iterations of the game, and they want to put all that into one movie. And when they do that, in each case with the graphic novel or with the movie, or with the video game adaptation, they always do the same thing. They kill any possibility of an escalation.
Yeah.
Imagine Batman and Superman first meet, and sorry,
it's going to be criticism and smart aleck remarks.
Some smart aleck remarks, but the contest between them is more intellectual because they haven't come to blows yet. So they're basically outwitting each other.
Yeah.
And then they figure, Superman figures out Batman's not the nut that he's portrayed as being, and Batman's like, okay, this guy is going to be real handy to work with.
Yeah.
And to have on your side.
I would imagine that Batman initially would believe that Superman, being this nice guy, is a front.
Right. So when Batman figures that out, and when Superman figures it out, okay, their battle of wits is essentially at an end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But later something else happens. Superman gets corrupted and becomes a threat, so Batman jumps in with his hunk of kryptonite or whatever. But something, and then they do have to get into a punch up. But if you do that punch up immediately when they meet, there's no room for escalation. It's the same thing with the video games. They want to cram all that cool stuff in, but then there's nowhere to go.
Yep.
That's why we didn't get a sequel to the Warcraft movie, because they fucked it up. They ruined it.
Yep. And now we're coming to this part of the stream where I get to segue into this by going, hey, tell us more about Womp Stomp Films and their current project.
You must be asking me.
Yes, I suck at segues, but I'm trying.
Well, Womp Stomp Films is currently in the in-demand stage on their Indiegogo campaign. That means they met their goal, but now they're in the stretch goals where they can... The more money they get donated at this point just means more stuff they can put into their movie.
Okay, what is actually Never Hike Alone?
Never Hike Alone is a Friday the 13th fan film, now kind of its own fan film franchise, because you've got Never Hike Alone, which is a 52-minute fan film. You got Never Hike Alone, the Ghost Cut, which includes the prequel to Never Hike Alone called Never Hike in the Snow, which is about, I think, 28 minutes or so. And in addition to that, in the Ghost Cut, there's also a music video that takes place, I believe, in 2012, maybe 2004. I know that's a big gap, but like I said, I see too many numbers on a daily basis. Everything's blurring. But in Never Hike Alone, the Ghost Cut, those are all part of the same Jason Voorhees story, and they're told in chronological order with some interspersed news clips about the goings-on at Crystal Lake. And they are currently working on the sequel, Never Hike Alone 2, which is they've got a clip for it, a 5-minute teaser clip up on their YouTube channel that's worth looking at, featuring Jason Voorhees and a young Tommy Jarvis. And it's It's looking to be pretty good. It's going to be the conclusion of the Never Hike Alone series.
Okay.
And it's going to be awesome. I know it's going to be awesome because I've seen the other stuff they've done. And this studio, Wompstown Films, is very good at what they do.
Okay.
Respect
So
for
now
the
we're gonna move on
fans,
to
yada, yada, yada. This is
this
Dylan's
one?
new nightmare. The Finishing Funds campaign. This is a sequel to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, where the actor Miko Hughes, who played young Dylan, Heather Langenkamp's kid in that movie, in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, reprises his role as Dylan as an adult for this one. And again, it's another great example of the fan filmmakers allowing the world that their story exists in to grow up with the audience, and I think that's awesome.
Do you know why I think the Nightmare on insert street name here films worked? A New Nightmare worked.
Why?
It's because Wes Craven doesn't take himself seriously enough to get bogged down.
Right, I agree.
He's prepared to make fun of his own fucking work. And New Nightmare is the one which happens in the real world, right?
Yes.
That's my favorite of the entire franchise.
Yeah, no, you're getting a fan sequel, and I can tell you, from what I've seen of that one, there's a couple of trailers out, I believe. The guy they get to play Freddy is Dave McRae, who is also behind It's Me, Billy Chapter 2. Dave McRae is a voice actor, and he's an actor as well. You know, a live action actor as well. But he plays Freddy Krueger, and from what I've seen, and when I've heard him impersonate Freddy through various live streams and whatnot, it's going to be good. And this is It's Me, Billy Chapter 2 is a sequel to It's Me, Billy, which is a Black Christmas fan film. Black Christmas was a slasher film from 1974. It features it's actually it's part of the how do I say this? It has a lot of similar elements that made Halloween successful.
Uh-huh.
It's creepy as hell. It's Margot Kidder is in it too, by the way. For anyone who knows who Margot Kidder is and is interested in seeing a young Margot Kidder in a slasher film before she was Lois Lane. But she's in it. It's a great little horror film, but It's Me, Billy kind of takes, again, it grew up with the fans.
Yeah.
It's not a silly look at the movie or at the story or anything like that. It takes it seriously, takes the fans seriously. That's another angle too, actually. These different productions, they're taking the fans seriously.
Do you know what
it seems to me that a lot of the big studio productions from Hollywood are not taking the fans seriously. And that's, I think, is part of the problem.
Yeah.
Go on.
Do you know what made a good Freddy Krueger movie?
What's that?
I was going to say Freddy versus Doctor Strange, but no, because that would be over within the first 5 minutes, wouldn't it?
Probably.
But yeah,
Freddy Krueger, I've come to bargain. Anyway, what?
Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger starts infecting these kids' dreams, right? And music as well. Well, who's playing the music?
Oh, sweet. Hang on, let me.
That's the website Maddie pulled up.
Yeah, let me see if I can stop that real quick. Didn't realize that had the music. I gotta find the tab. Oh, it's my ADD nightmare. Okay.
Freddy starts as he does because it's his modus operandi. There's some new families moved into Elm Street. He starts, attacking them. One of them's got this uncle, right? The black sheep of the family. He's an old man now, but he was a hippie. And he got into all this metaphysical shit. And he's what you could call a sorcerer, right? it's not Doctor Strange level, right?
Right.
Yeah, 'cause he still has to pay bills and shit like that, so he's not that good. But it ends up as basically it's a showdown between this old guy and Freddy Krueger. Yeah. And in the dream world, they're on a level pegging with each other.
Yeah.
Which, because none of the other characters, Nancy was never on a level pegging with Freddy, was she?
Not really, no.
Mm-mm.
She basically tricked him the only time she beat him. But
Yeah.
it'd be interesting to see Freddy try and face off against somebody who could take what he was dishing out and dish some back.
Yep.
What, like a professional smartass?
Hey, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do, but it just bothers me that Freddy Krueger became a smartass and nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
As where
if I was in charge of it, I'd bring him back to his his dark, twisted, evil roots.
yes, definitely. If I may, real quick,
Mhm.
tonight on Arthur's live stream, he's talking with Darth Crypto. I just wanted to point it out.
Okay.
You can find that on Rumble. I'll find a link and put it in the chat.
And if they ever did a Jason versus Michael Myers film, they'd have to have piano music in it.
Jason would win.
No, they'd have to have piano music in it, because otherwise it's going to be a silent movie, isn't it?
You should be able to put
Yeah.
the link to your Rumble in the live chat now, Arthur. I made you a mod, or I think I made you a mod.
Then I won't find a
I
link.
remember that. So, so to where our dear Mitch does the indie movies, I highlight indie comic creators because I follow a lot of writers and comic book creators. And this one, Jack Irons, done by one Cody Steele, which is over here. I'll show you his Twitter for those of you that want to follow him on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
I reviewed the first 3 issues of his comic book. Now, in all disclosure, he sent all 3 of them to me digitally for free because I wanted to read them to see what they were like and to review them, and he allowed me to do so. From the colorings to the line work to the all-over artwork, lettering, and story, this is a very solid comic book issue for issue. I haven't been disappointed yet. The Steel Cowboy, which is the guy in the little icon picture in the profile picture, is a cowboy that has lived many lives, and he's recounting his past lives and living through his past lives in order to muddle through the present. Now, even though there is exposition. English. Even though there is exposition during the first and third issues, it is done fairly well. It is easy to follow, and it is not boring. It's done in a very conversational tone. So the books are very well put together. So if you guys want to go give that a shot, I put the inversecomics.com website on there because they also have crowdfunding, which is how they're getting their products out.
Right.
And there's more than one comic book on that particular website, but this is the only one that I have reviewed.
I'm going to have to butt in because, I don't know how much longer you've got to go, but I've got to leave. Half an hour I'll be going into my role-playing games, but I've got certain necessities to take care of before then. Thank you for letting me on.
No problem.
Hope the rest of your stream goes well. I've got to get packed to go to the States to have a chat with Arthur.
Good luck on your preparations.
Yeah, just how do I get all that ammunition across borders? Anyway, I'll sort it out. You take care of yourselves.
Rock on.
You too.
Have a good one. Bye.
Give it a geek.
Bye.
Geek.
Now, the Ravenloft is another one up and coming indie. This is his Kickstarter is Demon Hunter Raven versus Volume 5. And they're also releasing omnibuses, which is, for those of you who don't know the term, several volumes of a comic book in one big version. That's what an omnibus is. Like, be the first through 5 episodes or issues in one particular graphic novel. But the reason I'm highlighting him is because I have backed a project of his that sounds kind of funny, but he's putting a lot of work in this, and it's really interesting. Ever since Winnie the Pooh went public domain, people have been doing projects, and this one is Winnie the Pooh Demon Hunter, which is the picture that's splashed across his banner over here. And yes, I've backed it because I like the premise. I think it's cute. I think it's absolutely whimsical. And I really think that it needs, a good shout and a good look view and some support. Hey, Pat.
Hey, Pat.
And so there's the link to his Twitter. And one final one is, let's see, share this one in StreamYard, though I know where I'm going. The Phoenix Press has a lot of projects out. One is the Samurai 2100, where a samurai from the samurai ages gets thrust into the 22nd century, and he loses his partner, and he has to find a way to get his partner back because she's been abducted. Other projects include Screecher, which is on the banner, and Screecher is a superhero type comic book in which she has to rescue her father. And from what I understand and from what I've been reading from the story that's developing, it seems to be a very solid story. I believe we're coming into the age of indie comic book and movie and show creators. So we really have to give the projects that we're interested in the due respect, and we have to get a bullhorn on these things, because I think
absolutely.
This is part of telling, I think this is part of telling mainstream media, hey, we want more of this and less what you're trying to push down our throats.
Well, again, one of the things a lot of these indie projects have in common is that they know the value of $1.
Yeah.
If we see a Friday the 13th film, it's probably going to be in excess of $50 million to make. I would say even closer to 100 at this point. But Womp Stomp Films is doing this feature length Never Hike Alone too. For I think they're approaching $300,000 now.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a beautiful quality product.
Yeah.
Same thing with It's Me Billy is It's Me Billy Chapter 2, I think just cracked 130. No. I want to say 130,000. I might be wrong about that. Again, too many numbers going through my head and it crossed my line of sight.
Yeah.
But It's Me Billy Chapter 2 has already has about 130,000, I think. And it's going to be a beautiful quality product.
Yeah.
Dylan's New Nightmare, I think, is still functioning under $100,000. Yeah. And it's going to be a beautiful quality project.
Mm-hmm. It's like
the
project.
It's in part because the technology has become more affordable. Let's not kid ourselves. But at the same time, it speaks to the dedication and the love
these people have for this.
I was going to go with sincerity, because these are sincere people. They're these aren't. I don't want to go with mentioning names, but these are sincere people, and you can be damn sure that they're not making these projects just to be socially awkward Steve on camera. Hi, this is my horror film. It's not that. That's a scary monster.
Yep.
We're going to get quality out of these projects. I guarantee it.
And in the coming weeks, since I have to really get used to doing this to myself, in the coming weeks, I'm going to be launching a Kickstarter with placeholder pictures and stuff in order to get my current project actually funded, so I can get art rolling in, so I can get everything done. So when we are able to mail everything out, it's coming out. And for those of you that don't know, I am writing a nonfiction book about the herbs in your kitchen, which is not only how you can cook with these herbs, but how you can use these herbs in a traditional medicinal sense, like in teas or poultices and things of that nature. So I'm including all that in there. It's my first Kickstarter project that I'm putting together. So obviously there's probably going to be bumps in the road, but I'm going to do what I can to talk to people that know that have been doing this kind of stuff for a while, to see if I can avoid or smooth some of those bumps out for my first project. So be on the lookout for the Kickstarter link. It should be hitting my timeline within the next couple of weeks, because if we can get this launched and funded, I can get this rolling, because it's also going to include quick reference, like recipe cards for people that don't want to leaf through the book all the time, in a little recipe box. And I'm looking through all that for projects and stuff. And after the Kickstarter's done, I'm planning on having some extras over so I can ship those out myself. Once the hard copies are done and out from my house, what I'm going to do is I'm going to then upload it to Smashwords and Kindle so everybody else can have access to them. So that's the way I'm working it this way around. So I hope you guys will be on the lookout for that, and I will try my best to put out like little info things as to how far along I am doing my part of the writing of the book. That way you guys can see how it's coming along, because I know updates are really big for stuff like this, and I don't want to seem like I'm scamming people. So there's that. And I am going to be opening up, actually it is kind of open up now for anybody that wants to write articles or stories for my website. All you have to do is send me your email, and I can actually invite you onto the blog as a contributor, so you can actually write and put your own stories on there, and I will update the web page to have your own name and your stories. That way they can click on and read what you're writing as well.
Groovy.
Because I want to boost. I believe in, not pulling up the ladder once I'm up there, but keeping it down there and going, come on up, guys. Let's all do this together. We're all in this together. Exactly. Let's help each other out. That's the only way we're going to excel.
Well, yeah, I have no money to contribute to these projects that I mentioned, or any others for that matter. But I do everything I can to show them out when I can, because I know that they're quality projects.
Yeah.
That it just seems, and honestly, you're right. We need to, I hate to get on the whole, we need to send a message to Hollywood kind of thing, but you know what? Spend your money where you're going to get a result.
And if you don't have the money to back these projects, by all means, put a bullhorn on them by sharing them on your social media platforms. Because the more eyes we can get on these projects, the more backers we can get these projects to have, and we can keep getting this entertainment that we all know that we want to see, instead of the entertainment that's being shown to us that isn't as entertaining as we know it can be. Right.
You might go into some of these things not knowing what you're going to get, but it's certainly going to be more entertaining than some of the stuff we see come out of Hollywood these days. Right? Easily.
Yeah.
I mean, have you noticed in the Hollywoods that the Hollywoods, they're one big family,
Yeah.
In the Hollywoods, the superheroes don't have secret identities anymore.
Nope.
You don't see the trials and tribulations of Peter Parker or Clark Kent. All you see now are Spider-Man and Superman. The secret identity persona has disappeared.
Yep. And it's kind of sad, really.
Kind of, yeah. Of course, speaking of adaptations with the superhero genre, all of those. Why does the Flash need 58 people on a team to back him up?
I don't know. I really don't know.
I don't get that. I never will.
Nope.
I don't want to talk about it. It just makes me angry.
We may have to come up with another stream to just completely vent on things that really bite us in the butt, so to speak. But until then, we got about 18 minutes. Hey, I did my math. We got about 18 minutes till your boy Pat goes live. I put his link over there in the live chat. Oh, yeah. And he's talking about something a little more political, which I am not going to espouse here because this is not a political channel. But I will tell you to go over there and give it a watch. Your boy Pat's pretty good, and we're probably going to be over there with him in about 18 minutes, chewing some more fat after I get a snack or whatever, because, I got to keep the belly full. Otherwise, the chemo makes me nauseous. Yay. Just, As always, pinned to the top is my GoFundMe. Anything you can contribute is greatly appreciated. If you cannot contribute because you're as strapped as I am, just share out the link and hopefully you'll find somebody that can throw a couple of shekels in my little hat. Until then, my friends, this has been Mitch Nemo.
Oh, yeah.
And Manny, as I always say, be good. And if you can't be good at it and make sure there's no cameras present. Until next time, bye.
Sayonara.